Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening indeed. Tonight, we discuss a plethora, such as snow. Many of you are wondering. We'll also be discussing soup, which is this evening. We'll get to that. We'll also be discussing the human condition. While I wait for my co-hosts, Michael and Mike, to explore and take a quick minute to understand something about oneself. And it is that no matter how insurmountable the odds may seem, it may appear to be difficult. It may one cannot overcome. But there's never a situation that cannot be conquered. Such soup, brought to you by Campbell's. And neither is Michael. One of them is at my shop, closing us. The other one is eating.
I know how to compose tastes. I don't know how to cook, but I can make flavors come together.
Well, that is generally a key component to cooking, but I don't know. I think you're just used to the fact that there are mushrooms in it.
It's not that.
I think it is.
Who do you always have taste test all your stuff to get minute corrections? Because I know what it needs. I have a refined palate. That's why I eat SpaghettiOs and potato salad all the time.
Gross.
Delicious.
Well, I could just have mushrooms and saute them in the juices afterwards.
I was going to say, you're also the person that thinks it's okay to mix water and chocolate. So
It is. It's very okay to do that.
I mean, I prefer milk, but I understand water.
Ooh.
Hi, John. Hi, are you okay? Your microphone is like not working or something. I don't know.
Yeah, your microphone's not working. I'm a lip reader.
Like I can hear like.
Yes.
He's just practicing his beatboxing. So Trevor, who almost came to EDH but did not come to EDH, sent me a message and was like, "So I may or may not have like 6 pieces of Le Creuset that I inherited." I was like, "I hate you so much right now." He has a Dutch oven and a broiler and a skillet and a couple of pieces.
Can you hear me at all?
So jealous.
Okay, it's definitely it's definitely a network thing because you're getting that like robot pingy sound. I think. Wait, hang on.
Hello.
Hi. Say something. Nope.
Should I reset my network again? I'll do it.
Yeah, I guess it worked really well for like a second, and then yeah.
Go figure. Very.
I have a babka.
Will be the first.
Thank you. Good. Initially, you get like a lot of like kind of like a holiday spice, like a cinnamon-y taste. That's kind of overwhelming in the first bite, but then as you chew it and eat it, it gets better.
My couch. My couch.
Continue my baptism.
I will bring your chair over though if you would like your chair.
Sure. Yeah, I might reduce cinnamon next time.
Okay, how does that sound
That sounds better so far.
so far?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. It's important for me to express something to you,
Okay.
You may not want to watch that.
and it is
I don't know.
like water.
Oh wait, we're live.
Oh yeah,
Okay, sorry. Continue.
that's totally fine. But something you must know. Chicken with noodles is unbelievable.
It is, truly is.
I was thinking about drinking this in the shower, and I chose not to because I didn't
I
want
think the most me thing you could have done.
That's what I had you in mind when I was taking the shower, and I thought, drink my soup in here like Michael Radon,
Mm-hmm.
and then I opted out of it
Mm.
because I hadn't made the soup yet. So
Yeah. Well, see, shower is hot, so you just have to if you just let the soup sit in the hot water, it'll heat.
I'd have to hold it in front of the actual shower head.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing better. It's been another one of those days.
Yeah. What's
And,
going on?
Nothing specifically. I just woke up again, and it's interesting. I'll run you through my day. Woke up, got plenty of sleep, slept in a little bit, which is kind of nice because I don't get a chance to do that often. Waited till my body was nice and ready to get up. So finally got up. I was awake and I stayed in bed for about another half an hour, 45 minutes, and just messed around on my phone, played my DS, just sort of sat there and was like, all right, I think I'm gonna get some breakfast. I'm gonna feed the cats. I'm gonna go see what today has in store. Go to the gym at some point. So I woke up and was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna relax a little bit. I'm actually this is my day off. Let's take some time. So I threw on Twilight Princess and I was playing through an area in that, and everything was going really fine. And I got to one of the mini bosses, and I'm playing on hero mode, so the game is mirrored, and you take double damage, and there's no hearts, and so it was a little bit more difficult, which is fine. But I died to this boss 4 times, and I felt myself get inexplicably furious, angry. I was livid, and I mean, games don't do that to me. I can die on Mario Maker thousands of times in a row, nothing happens. I can play Mega Man all day long and get killed and think nothing of it, nothing. But I was feeling so mad while this happened. I was like, I don't want to have this anger, this rage, and I started getting really pissed off. And so I got up and I started cleaning, was trying to take my mind off of things, and I was just feeling really hot, angry, just I don't know what it was, just mad for some reason. And I thought, okay, well, there has to be something that's triggering this. And I was looking into if there's anything specific, but nothing, has changed from week to week, ultimately. In the past couple weeks, just been working, doing my thing, doing the store. I was sick for the past couple weeks, but I'm mostly over. I might still sound a little bit under the weather, but I feel infinitely better, I assure you. And so I went to the gym and was doing my gym thing. And even at the gym, I was kind of just feeling anxious, just really oh, something's bothering me, but I don't know what it is. And after I finished up at the gym, I went down to the store, stopped by the gas station, got a drink, filled up my car, got to the store, and we're just feeling just sort of cloudy, kind of just not optimal. I didn't really want to interact with anybody, but I did. I saw a couple of people there, and that was kind of cool. Saw my employees, talked to them, went home, and got inside and was just something's wrong. I don't know what it is. There's nothing to do with people I'm communicating with at this point. Store stuff might be stressing me out, but nothing has changed, so it's not anything new. but I was feeling like everything wasn't right, you know? And
Yeah.
I don't like it because like, it sort of comes out of nowhere. And this is sort of what depression does. You know, usually I think if I can cite a reason, it's easier for me to look at, to address and work through. But when out of nowhere, it sort of just comes in, I think that's the most frustrating thing for me because I can't cite a root. And if I can't cite a root, then I can't like work towards a goal. And that's the hardest part for me.
I definitely understand. I've been going through the same thing really this past couple weeks.
Yeah, and like I don't know, you know, it's nice to know that like it is part of the experience. It happens and it will pass. I'll work through it, and I've been there, you know. But today just felt extra potent. But yeah, you know, and it's important because you aren't alone. I was talking to a friend some weeks back when I was feeling, you know, kind of crummy then, and she said it's so weird for me to imagine you having a hard time and being depressed because you have everything together. And I was like, no. It probably looks very much like that. And I think about the fact that there's a lot of people who do sort of put that off. And I think for the most part, people sort of see that as something that I exude, but I don't have everything together. You know, I work on keeping things as together as I can. And I think that's what people see. But I think it's also okay to just not be okay sometimes. It's okay to not have everything together, but just to try your best in spite of that. But sometimes it just comes out and you realize you don't have it together. And I think that sort of takes people off guard. But it's very humanizing to know that not everybody who looks like they're doing okay is necessarily okay. Not because I don't want people to be okay, but because we all sort of have a struggle that's ours and our own.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. Some people, the struggle is they don't like water in their chocolate.
Yeah, those people are wrong.
They're wrong because you're allowed to do that. Yeah. I mean, it's what do you think Yoo-hoo's made out of?
Right?
Right. And you know what Yoo-hoo is? It's delicious.
Delicious. It's the best thing.
It's the best thing. I need to find a way to start carrying that again, by the way. So we haven't carried it in 5 years, but I think we've been advertising that we do.
No, I took it out of the advertisements.
Oh, that's right, you did.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So now if you get it, I'm going to have to change everything.
That is true. Yeah, exactly. I have to revert back to old advertisement.
Yeah, prominent Yoo-hoo distributor.
We're the number one in Albuquerque, number one Yoo-hoo distributor. So I have a question for you because something that's important to me sort of came up, and there's a sort of weird dichotomy. So when I have like a day like today where I feel depressed, where I feel angry, where I feel mad, where I feel sad, where I feel just sort of like smothered, there are certain things that will sort of pull me out of that and heal me, and certain things that I want to, but they don't. I think there are certain video games that can sort of calm that element. So do you have like a go-to game when you're in a really difficult spot? Do you have somewhere where you sort of, maybe it's a movie or a food or a game or an experience or a person?
It's kind of silly, but like when I get in, like when I'm having like a really bad day, like not just like like I'm annoyed about something, but like I'm stressed or I'm like really angry at something or whatever. I can just like sit down, and if I can zone out, and I've done this before where I'll put on a Beatmania game and I'll play it like all day, like 8, 10, 12 hours. I'm just going to do this thing. I'm just going to push these buttons when the game tells me to push them, and I'm not going to think about anything else. And I come out on the other side like, wow, I wasted an entire day, but I feel a lot better about things. Like it's because, like I said, I've been kind of going through some similar stuff where I've just been inexplicably, like I can't tell you exactly why, but I've been in the mood to like argue with people and like call people out or like start conflict or just snap at people and be barky. And I don't like being that way, but that's just how I've kind of felt. And so being around people, as much as I love being around people and I love my friends and I love all that, it doesn't really help with a mood like that because it sort of just encourages me to be in situations where I can react to what other people do in a way that my body is telling me to do, but I don't want to do.
I can understand that.
Like it's not how I treat people. It's not how I carry myself when I'm making conscious, smart decisions. So I don't want to just like on a whim do something that I'm going to have to apologize later for or regret or whatever. So doing something like that where I just kind of turn the world off. And I turn like everything off, and like even my brain, and like I'm not doing critical thinking. I'm doing like finger exercises essentially.
You have moments when, like you say, you're playing Beat Mania. Because what I did today is I popped on Rock Band for a little while and just zoned out and played the drums. But then like I'll notice that like I'll start thinking while playing, and that'll throw me off, and it'll throw off my concentration, throw off my rhythm. What do you do to like keep focused on your game, to keep focused in your moment, like in your escape?
It's just something I'm good at, unfortunately. I can't really say like I'm like people always say like, oh, I bet you're bored right now. Like, I'm sorry that you're like having to sit here while you wait for a doctor's appointment, or like, you know, since I asked you to do this thing and it's just kind of killing time for you.
Yeah.
But I just sort of like, I'm very comfortable living inside of my own head and just sort of tuning out all the stimuli around me. But there are other games, like I know, for example, like F-Zero is a game where if I'm actively thinking about it, I play it a lot worse.
Yeah.
Than when I'm just sort of just like like having an idle thought about something, but also, you know, making these pinpoint turns and breaks and whatnot. So it's I can't, unfortunately I can't say like here's what I do. It's just, I don't know, like it's a good idea to like it's a good time to be imaginative. Something that I do a lot just in general is when I want to talk to someone about something, and it could be something mundane or it could be something like really important, I like to kind of have that conversation with them myself. And it's kind of unfair to the other person for me to guess how they're going to react. But by sort of playing through that conversation 2 or 3 different ways in my head before I have it, I feel more prepared to have that conversation.
Okay.
And so it's something.
To an extent.
Yeah. So it's something that I can do. Like if I am just having other thoughts, I try and make them sort of creative, but also practical, I guess, or just creative. You know, if I'm just like thinking about like, oh, like wouldn't it be cool if there was a movie with a scene where there's a guy and his cell phone rings and then he punches 3 guys in the face and steals a car or whatever, you know, like just something to think about. Yeah.
Okay. So you have a way to escape that you've sort of prepared as an internal mechanism that you can go to. So say you're out and about and you're at, say, the bus stop. You have a way to address it for yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, things are too directed at you, and it's in those situations, like if you're at a party or something and someone is at the party and they're just being like really annoying or like really offensive to you, and it's bothering you, like the thing that they're doing is affronting you, and maybe not like they're not like getting in your face, but just like whatever it is they're doing makes you angry.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one thing to like this situation that we're talking about where it's like, yeah, I feel shitty and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then there's not like a stimulus that you're aware of. There's not something happening in your life that you are consciously focused on that's happening to you. So there's nothing for you to tune out, essentially. Right. But if there is something like that that's just bothering you, like a barking dog across the street that won't stop or something like that, then it becomes harder to tune that out, because it's sort of, that's the thing that you're fixated on. That's the thing that's making you upset. And so the more that it persists around you, the less capable you are to think about anything else. And so in those kind of situations, I just, you know, you have to take yourself out. Like if I'm hanging out with people and someone's just really bugging me, like, then yeah, I'll leave, you know, because the alternative is that I will get angry and do something that I don't want to do.
Yeah. Are there certain things that sort of exacerbate that for you? For example, like a lot of this, excuse me, I'm still like coughing, but when I'm sick, I tend to feel a lot less tolerant, and not of people necessarily, but of how I handle situations.
Yeah, just the things that you like or don't like.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel well. You are already feeling less than you like to feel.
Yeah.
And then, because yeah, when I'm sick, I'm usually very like tired. I'm very lethargic. I don't want to be bothered. So Yeah, that's part of it too.
Yeah, and that might be like a very large element of this. Is allergies are still bothering me like more than normal, and I'm having a hard time getting over that. And that might just sort of be amplifying, mood frustrations. I remember some years back I was having to deal with some guys at the store who at the West Side location, and we had like a policy of no food in the room. And so I came in like one morning the next day. I wasn't feeling well, and I saw a bunch of McDonald's bags and like a drink, and I was just like, "Come on, this is ridiculous." So I checked the security cameras because I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna find out who this is so we can address it and be like, guys, no." And
Mhm.
so, when the culprits, and they were just kids, they came in, and I said, "Hey, did you guys have food here the other night?" And they said no. And I said, "So why did I see you on camera?" I just straight up, "Why did I see you on camera walk in there with McDonald's? And then this morning I found all your trash." And they said, "What? Well, we didn't do that." And I said, "I have you on video camera doing that." And they just looked at me. And normally, I mean, I would probably address it in a much more approachable way, maybe a little bit more affable.
Yeah.
But I just straight was like, "No, I caught you. I saw you. You did this. What do you have to say?" And they, I think, were more taken aback, not by the fact that they were caught, but by the fact that I just sort of like shot them down immediately.
Mhm.
And I think the only reason I was that direct is because I was feeling sick. And I don't like feeling sick because it does make me feel like I'm less tolerant of a person, which to a degree can be good because it means people aren't going to like do anything that is taking advantage of me. I don't think I'm to that point really with anybody, but I'm definitely very patient when it comes to things at the store. And a week and a half ago, we had this dude who was in the store for 2 hours, and he was asking a million questions and doing all this stuff. And I was just, I was like beginning to get sick. And so my patience level was diminishing and quickly, and I could feel it. And it was frustrating me because I didn't want to like end up doing something that was going to cause issue. And we ended up grabbing a controller off the wall to test it for some reason, and it ended up not working. And I remember thinking, "This sucks." And I grabbed the controller and I just popped it onto the ground. I didn't like toss it or throw it, but I just sort of like threw it over by the trash can, and it shattered into a bunch of pieces. And I was like, "Fucking shit." And I just felt so mad. And it wasn't this guy's fault. I mean, he was a nice guy, and he just happened to be caught up in the fact that I was not feeling well. But he also, he was questioning everything I did, and he had a lot of things, and it was just sort of one of those customers that takes up a lot of time and asks a lot of questions and wants a lot of things to be very exact and specific. And I want to be tolerant of people and every single customer ideally. And if somebody's going to be truly awful, sure, that's one thing. He wasn't being awful. He was just being parasitic is sort of like the way to put it, but not in like a way that he was a terrible person.
Yeah, he wasn't like going out of his way to make life hard for the shop.
Yeah, he was not antagonizing.
He just had a lot of need.
There was a lot. He was a very needy customer, and I was not feeling well, and my voice was going away, and I had this crazy headache, and I hadn't eaten all day long, and it was a 2-hour-long ordeal, and so like I felt myself like getting ready to snap. And so as soon as he left, I was like, "Granger, I'll be back." And he just was like, "Fine." And I walked into the back room, and I just sat there for like 10 minutes and just in the dark, just breathing, because I was so like worked up. I was not doing well. And I noticed like this happening more and more and more. And it's mostly just when I was sick. But nonetheless, it was there and it was present and it was bothersome because I didn't want to do that. And, there's also a little bit of pressure, I'm going to admit, to where people, think of me as being, yep, that John doesn't buckle. John doesn't get upset. John doesn't, he's very patient, he's very tolerant. And so there is sort of like this stigma that I'm not supposed to do that. And so when it comes out, I almost feel as if I'm letting people down.
Yeah, but this is the way you kind of have to look at it is, because I'm kind of the same way. I'm not as patient as you are, but I do have that sort of similar reputation. Mm-hmm. And the way that I look at it is that if you are treating people the way you should be treating them all the time, mm-hmm. then that's never really going to be an issue, right? Like if someone had asked like, "Hey, do you guys have Joe and Mac?" and you were like, "Get the fuck out of my store," then that's on you. Like, right. But like with the food, with the McDonald's, like that was someone, they knew what they were not supposed to do, and they did it. But if they were treating you as if they were to be prepared for your worst day, then that wouldn't have been an issue.
Mhm.
And so to me, it's kind of a boon because it's is boon the right word? I don't know. But it's beneficial because it means that when I am having those shitty days, when I am in those shitty moods, and I lose my patience and I bark at someone, then I know that I'm going to be hurt because I don't do that all the time.
Mhm.
It's not like I have to just constantly be like, guys, stop it, guys, stop it, guys, stop it, guys, stop it.
Yeah.
By saving those reactions for only when I'm at my least patient, my least tolerant, then I know that I'm going to get the response that I need in that moment because I'm not 100%.
Right. It's tricky being human. There's a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's
You
a
have to
lot
poop.
like pooping. Is that what you said?
Yeah, you have to poop. You have
do.
to breathe constantly.
You do. There's a lot of micromanaging.
Yeah.
The ultimate RTS. To make sure you're not burning your hands on things and
Yeah.
clean out your ears occasionally and like, dang, there's a lot to us all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Excuse me. But I think that's part of it, and it is genuinely enjoyable. It is genuinely good to be able to do all those things. But I think it's so important to be able to take a moment to get away and to relax and to give yourself like a refresher and a refiller, and and occasionally stuff comes up just with the store. Having two stores, having multiple stores is a very difficult prospect. It's a very difficult endeavor for me, and there are times, and we'll just be honest about this on air, there are times when I've gotten feedback that it's like John has stopped caring for the West Side store. And that, I think, bothers me when that comes up because I don't think it's taken into account sometimes that sometimes I have to work at the East Side store for 70 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so delegating responsibility to somebody else to help me out with a time like this and thinking that it's because I don't care, because I'm trying to do something differently, is extraordinarily hard for me to hear, because I don't want people to think that I don't care, because I'm just having to focus something elsewhere to make sure that doesn't crash and burn, and that can be really, really tough.
Yeah.
But and things like that add up, I think, and I don't ever want to like do things for the glory of recognition, but I think there are some times when my expectations are placed on me that are so high because one aspect of it is seen, that when I don't have the opportunity to do everything that I would like to do in the way that I would like to do, it adds up in terms of a failed expectation, and then that makes me feel like I'm unfulfilling.
Yeah, and if people don't realize what you're putting into something, like 90% of people are not willing to put the work into getting what they want. Like a recent example for me is that, I have a lot of friends here that play fighting games. It's kind of what my group does for the most part.
Yeah.
And Street Fighter V came out, and a lot of people are like, oh, like we should start doing tournaments. Now that this new game is here and there's a lot of people excited about playing it, we should get into doing weekly tournaments, and we should get into like really trying to build the scene here. And I said, I agree. Like we're never going to have like a competitive scene without that sort of repetitive community building exercise. But I don't have the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And if someone else wants to pick up the slack and do most of the legwork to make that happen, I will support you. I will teach you everything you need to know that I know personally. I will be there when I can to help things run. But I can't be the guy that's going to be there week after week after week after week making sure that things are working.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you guys really want this thing, someone else has to do it. And you know what? Nobody else has stepped up to do it. So, it's... People can have like that belief, like, oh, you don't care about things as much as you used to, or like this thing you've lost your passion for this thing, and it's there's so much more to it than that. When people see you as an extension of that thing, they're not seeing you; they're seeing what you bring to that thing. And when the thing doesn't meet their expectations, then they point the finger back to the person, the human being, who has to poop and breathe and all that.
Yeah, it can be easy to see that what you're giving, I'm not being fulfilled by, therefore you're at fault.
Yeah.
I'm not getting what I want out of your effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to sort of limit it to just that right there. And and I take full responsibility for everything that it comes down to, for the people that I choose to have in my store, for the people that I choose to help me out with specific situations. And so, I mean, all of that is part of me. So I'm not saying that, like, I chose the wrong person, they suck. But, like, if I chose somebody that might not have been ready for the job, that's my responsibility, and I fully accept those kinds of things. So I don't mind being responsible for it, but it can be disheartening when, somebody says, you don't care about this, or you didn't do this, or how did you let this happen? And it's like, man, if only you knew, like, there are thousands of variables behind the scenes and a hierarchy of priorities. And I had read something recently, and it was this really interesting sort of presentation. And it was taking the idea of saying, I don't have time for something, and replacing it with, it's not a high priority. And so, how much does that affect your interpretation of the things that are in your life that I don't have time for this? Is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it a passion? If you say, I don't have time to do this, replace it with saying, this person is not a high priority for me, and see how that feels. See how that would affect, oh my gosh, I'm really actually placing them down further on the totem actively instead of just lumping them into things I have time for and things I don't have time for. And it alters the perspective of how you choose to prioritize things in your life. And it made me sort of remap the things that I want to do and the things that I need to do. And unfortunately, I realized that this sickness thing just made me so tired that things became low priority because I don't have the energy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff became low priority because I don't have the energy, and that kind of sucks. But it also makes me look at what it is that I really want, and who I really want around, and who I really want to make the time for. And I feel bad because it's not everybody. And it's not because people aren't important to me, but because there are people that are self-sustaining on some levels, and certain people that I need to nurture a relationship with, or certain.
That is exactly it. I don't like. I have a bad habit of doing it, but I don't like to prioritize people over other people if I can help it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a world of difference between people that just want to be around and will go with the flow, and people who need me, or need me to engage them. And that need takes so much more out of you. So that, when you're sick, when you're busy, when you're grumpy, like, just having people around that can be around is great, and having people around that, like, need to be interacted with and engaged is 1,000% more exhausting.
Did we discuss last time the idea of being on the take? I can't remember if we brought that up.
The take?
The take. So this is an idea that was introduced to me by my friend Michelle, the psychologist, psychoanalyst, and she had pointed out that there are some people who are simply on the take. And what that means, and it's not a negative thing necessarily, but it's something to recognize if you are able to reciprocate their needs, is people who, and I definitely don't want to put this in like a negative light. That's one thing I want to emphasize. But there are people who wish to take from you, and not out of like in a way that they're trying to rob you of something, but because that's sort of like a neediness or a commitment that you've signed up for. But people who sustain by saying, this person will provide this for me, whether it's an energy or a discussion or a validation or whatever it is, they're looking to take from you, and the danger with it comes from, like, if I have all my duties fulfilled and I have my life sort of locked down and things are going on and I'm at a place where I've sustained enough to where I am filled with the ability to give, being on the take is not a problem. But somebody being on the take when I am drained myself, they're asking for something that I don't have. They're saying, I want the 5 cookies even though you only have 2, and those 2 cookies might not even be for you. Those are still for somebody else or something else, but I still want the 5. And if you're not going to provide that for me, I'm going to be upset. And, very few people in my life have actually been to that point, and only one that I ever had to remove because they needed something that I simply couldn't give, or I was giving them the wrong thing. But they were on the take for validation. They were on the take for energy and time and fulfillment, and it had drained me so much that I said, I can't have you around. And that was done. And that sucked. But it it was something that I had to recognize and learn to understand that there are simply people out there who need to take.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, it's possible, like, for anyone listening, like, it's very possible for those kinds of people to be taking from one source to be giving to 3 other sources.
Right.
Right. Like, that's your experience and your perspective are so limited in scope that you don't know. You know, like when you hear it sort of described in that fashion and in such black and white terms, it feels like, oh, well, this person's a mooch or a leech, and it's not that.
Right.
You know, it's that maybe they've exhausted themselves in these other avenues and they need these things from, you know, somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've run out of groceries. I need to get groceries from the store.
Mhm.
The store doesn't want to sell me groceries. They're a bad store, but
Yeah, that would be a bad business. But yes, I I fully agree. Also, because I did leave the Q&A app open so that way we can welcome conversation, and I welcome anything tonight. Like, for talking about, you know, serious things and emotions and mood and stuff is really important to me, but I think a bit of levity is extremely important as well. So it's being pointed out by John Shaw that Michael's eyebrows are on fleek 100%.
I'm assuming that means me because everyone always talks about my eyebrows, but it could be Michael Graham is here, by the way, guys.
Yes, Michael Graham. Hi, thank you for sort of.
Hey, how's it going?
It's hard to tell if your eyebrows are on point right now, but they seem like they're good. But Radon's like.
I did just shape because I had grown a beard for like almost a month because I was feeling crummy and I was just like, I'm not gonna shave. Like it's not important.
Yeah.
But I was up really late a couple nights ago. And I was trying to go to sleep. My mustache was really bothering me, and I was like, I don't have time to shave because I'm too tired, but I am going to go crazy. So I shaved just the mustache, and I looked like an Amish person. But I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to see anyone tomorrow. Like, I will wait until I knew Wednesday I had this, and I just got back from dinner with Aaron's parents, and I was like, I'm forcing myself to shave by Wednesday, but all I care about right now is comfort. I don't care what I look like. I'm just trying to go to bed. And so then, of course, what ended up happening was that Tuesday afternoon, like 3 people were like, hey, can we come over and do stuff? And I was like, oh, God, okay, I guess I have to go shave now. But, yeah, so I did some eyebrow shaping at the time also. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John, if you're talking to me and not Michael Graham. And if you're talking to Michael Graham, thank you for saying nice things to Michael Graham.
Another question that popped up
thanking him for me
as well is, would you rather have diarrhea for the rest of your life or open a 3rd store? And the stress of a 3rd store, I feel, would give me active diarrhea for the rest of my life. So I actually feel that there's very little distinction between the two other than having the diarrhea I can maintain without having a 3rd store, which I would probably choose, to be totally honest. You know, I can deal with diarrhea. Like, it's just extra poop that is a little bit more urgent, you know?
Yeah.
But if I could deal with that without the focus of a 3rd store, I would be okay with.
You could just tape like an Albertsons bag to your butt.
Yeah, exactly, a paper one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. Or a Subway bag, like the sandwich bags. Those are really good.
Yeah.
Those are made for that. Also, shout out to the guy going ham on that food in the background.
That's my roommate, Trent. You just got a shout out for going ham on your food.
It's falling apart on me.
Is that a burrito? It looks delicious.
What is it?
Chicken burrito.
Chicken burrito with a whole grain tortilla.
It looks delicious.
Absolutely falling apart.
Yeah, it's got like a fissure.
I dig it. I want to eat it. Okay, I'm going to check and see if we have any other questions because I am trying to push out more questions this evening.
Anthony says both, I like John in the suit.
Oh, good.
And he also says, get a total colectomy. It's like having 3 stores without revenue.
Oh. That sounds wonderful.
So.
Okay.
The grass could be browner, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? That's the moral.
Diarrhea grass.
Yeah.
That's what if you want to get like cows to have diarrhea.
Kentucky brown grass.
Kentucky brown. So this evening I am also eating Girl Scout cookies because I was like, you know, if I'm gonna make like a quick indulgence to eat something delicious and like make myself feel better. Girl Scout cookies are a pretty good way to go because I didn't eat them all yet. I'm actually really trying to pace myself so I don't get all fat.
Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I have no self-control.
They're delicious.
Which is why I'm all fat.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple. We'll keep going back and forth, and we'll talk about. There's been some interesting announcements this week, game-wise.
Yes.
Okay.
I know that you're pumped about Oddworld.
So they announced Soulstorm, which is not just a remake of Abe's Exodus, but apparently like a redo. Like they're actually going to be pushing this to feel more, to feel new, to have like it's basically like a deluxe retelling. From what I understand, it's not just a straight up new and tasty style port or remake. It's not a port, but they're going to be adding significantly more and retelling that entire story, which I'm looking forward to because I think new and tasty. For me, I know you're not a huge Oddworld fan. I'm tremendously excited. So
I've still just never played the series, so.
Well, give it a shot. See what you think. To me, they're extremely creative, extremely fun. They're also very heavy-handed, message-wise, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And that's not for everybody, and that's totally fair. But they definitely are pushing like a political sort of message here, environmental and spiritual as well. It's really interesting, and yeah, I really like him. I think Lauren Lanning is an extremely interesting game developer, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to be doing with this. One of the big chunks of news this evening, and this put my soul at ease. This is one of those things that like I heard and I could, I'm maintaining peace. Is they are at this point much more heavily considering cross-platform play between Xbox One and PS4 with the start of Rocket.
Yep.
And
I saw that.
Um,
I'm actually very excited about it.
Final Fantasy XI technically had some of that going on some years back, but this is a much more direct, like competitive thing, and it's a phenomenal move, and I didn't expect it, but I'm extremely excited to see how they can get this to work and what venues it will open up in the future.
Yeah, it's exciting, and at the same time, like the way it's unfolded since like the first like, oh my god, that's really a thing that's happening, has been a little disappointing but expected because Microsoft came out and said like, yeah, we're down to do this if the developer wants it, we're down to do it as long as Sony gives the thumbs up.
Right. Which
makes it sound like, we were the ones holding things back, and now we're opening the doors and we're saying like, this is better for our games if we have this as a feature. And then I guess Sony's response today was like, yeah, maybe. And then their lawyers were like,
yeah,
maybe's a bit much.
Yeah, it's interesting because all the headlines are really glamorizing this thing as, hey, guess what's happening, guys? And it's like, no, don't jump the gun. Like, this just opens up possibility, but there's still zero guarantees. This could be it. Like, we could never do this again, and that might happen.
Yeah. But as someone who loves Rocket League a lot, it's kind of like my number one game right now. Like, I'm excited to have some new people to play with, and really looking forward to it.
I'm excited to see what this does for a tournament scene and how it opens up, because what I would like to see is that if people were to go to a tournament, a Rocket League tournament, say they hold like at a LAN center or something, you now have the option of choosing whichever controller you want, and getting multiple setups of having an Xbox One, a PS4, and a PC in that environment now can be completely contiguous, and I'm just interested to see sort of like what they're going to do as far as like, will they limit PS4 players because of controller, or will they say, hey, yeah, this is the way the game is now set up, world's your oyster when it comes to control scheme, within reasonable limitations, of course. Not like super turbo modded ultra sticks or whatever, but yeah, I'm excited to see down the line what possibilities lay ahead, because truth be told, I would love if Grand Theft Auto 5 got, because that would open up infinite doors for anybody. We could have 20 new people, because I have a bunch of friends who play on one system and not on the other, because they don't do that.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, Radon could come in and join us, and my buddy Michael and my buddy Adam, and 5 other people who have it on the Xbox One can now play with no problem, and it's no longer, it's like the Berlin Wall.
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is me being a realist about it, because this is something I learned like a couple days before this announcement. There's been a lot of dispute in the Rocket League community for the uninformed, of which I was a part, as to whether or not when you're on PC, like right, you hit T to type a message, Y if you wanted to go to your team, and if you hold like R1, you can do voice chat. And the dispute has been, can PS4 players hear you or see your chat? Some people say yes, and some people say no. And I finally got a firm answer, which is that they cannot. You can do like chat with macros, like you can hit like 2 buttons on your D-pad, and it'll send a pre-recorded like nice shot or what a save. But if you type out like, hey, hold off, like play defense for a bit, I'm gonna do this thing or whatever, or if you do that with voice chat, the PS4 players can't see or hear that.
Okay.
The reason is that Sony stopped Psyonix from implementing that. They had it ready. It could be part of the game, and Sony said they didn't want that.
Do they not want it because of the ability or the difficulty of trying to communicate back rapidly?
That's what I would assume. That's
Yeah.
the reason I would assume. But so then that gives me trepidation as well into saying, like, yeah, great, now Xbox and PS4 players can play together, but are they going to be able to talk to each other? Are they going to be able to communicate?
Is there any sort of like universal headset server or like voice server?
Yeah, you can use things like Mumble or TeamSpeak or like all the programs that a lot of like esports players on PC already use.
Sure, but you'd still need to have that set up outside of your Rocket League. So if Xbox guy wanted to communicate with PS4 guy, like they'd still need to have some sort of external communication set up, and they couldn't natively just say Xbox One headset, PS4 headset, and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So that's like a one more thing. It's funny. I love Nintendo, but it makes me think of like now they've been delegated to like or relegated to Nintendo levels of communication for their online games, which is none.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's a macro. Okay. Any games in the future? Anything down the line that you would want to see implement this, or we'll say like retrograde any game. What game, if you could choose one game right now to have this cross-platform play, what would you choose?
I would go with something like Destiny or The Division, something that's out right now that people are playing a lot, and it would just be nice to like imagine that you've been playing this game and you're familiar with the size of the world and like, okay, this is how many people I'm accustomed to having around, and then one day you log in and that number just doubles. Like, that would be exciting, I would think. Well, not in The Division because you have to wait in line to do things, but you just get cornered by people doing calisthenics all the time. But have you guys seen those videos?
I don't think so.
No.
So, did they patch that yet?
No.
Okay, so in The Division, they made a conscious decision that you can't clip through other players.
Oh, right. Okay. I've seen
So
articles about this.
there are people who are griefing by like blocking doorways and just like idling. They'll just stand and like get a group of people and stand in front of a door and stop and just like put their controllers down and go do other things so that people can't get in and out of a door. Or like someone will be in an alley looking at a piece of loot and like they'll get flash mobbed. They'll just get swarmed by a group of players. They'll just start doing jumping jacks in front of them and they're stuck in that corner until they log out or those people decide to leave.
That seems like an oversight. Okay. It's all right.
Like, I get why they did it, but yeah, it's
Interesting. So basically, the law of the land is you probably just shouldn't be a dick. It's very much like real life where you can be a dick.
no. They have there are pictures of people like there's a table. There's a guy sitting at a table who's like giving out quests,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a line of players waiting to get to the table, and you can see in like the text chat someone's like, "Hey, don't cut."
That's kind of cool. In a sense, I kind of like that you almost need to like maintain your own social structure.
Yeah.
Hmm. Otherwise, it gets chaotic, and you're not going to enjoy it any more than anybody else. In fact, it makes everybody upset.
Yeah.
Wait in line. I kind of like that idea. I can see the complications, but it's neat.
It's not a perfect system, but it's an interesting sort of twist on things.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you would choose The Division or Destiny or one of those games that I think that'd be a really good call.
Yeah,
especially-
games that I don't necessarily play, but I think that they would benefit by having a larger active player base.
Sure. Being able to combine that, I think, would be really good. Graham,
It's Grand Theft Auto without question.
that's fair.
When I heard that announcement, that was the first thing that popped into my head.
Yeah, thinking
Was
like,
just like, it'd be so good, so good.
yeah,
Our stupid crew would at least double in size.
it would make it much easier for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, holy, yeah, this thing is still getting me, man.
Stop it.
I can't. I will not.
Stop. Stop.
Okay. So they announced this. We'll see what the future of that lies, or where that lies. And there's been some other interesting announcements where today Sony came out and said, "Hey, here's the price of our VR headset." So what do you think? $400.
$400 is good, but then there's the asterisk that you need the camera.
You need the camera, which is only 60
It's $60, but like I was talking to a friend of mine who's a huge Omar. Omar is a huge Sony fan. He's been to the PlayStation experience. Like that's his baby. He loves Sony. He didn't know. He had no idea that you needed the camera for the PlayStation VR.
Okay.
So like it's not a big cost, but it's one of those customer experience things where because you don't know that,
You could still walk away without a vital piece of it after your purchase.
yeah, you go home, you're excited to do VR, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. So $400. We'll assume at this point that $400 is just the cost. I know it's not, but let's go ahead and say for this discussion, $400 is what we're working with. Is that price point good enough to invite people of the mainstream into VR?
Yeah. Compared to the other alternatives,
So
I
comparative,
think so.
for sure.
Comparative.
But
Yeah, if it was on its own, if it was like this is what you need for VR and there's no other options,
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. What it does do is it taps into the pre-existing excitement that people have for VR,
Mhm.
and it gives them an enticing, lucrative price point that they can go, well, I could wait for the Oculus, I could do the HTC, but this thing's $400.
Right.
That's
So-
way better.
Do you feel that like the risk, because still with a price point like that, do you feel that this is going to enable the gimmicky peripheral kind of thing where it's like, oh, the Super Scope is so cool, this thing's only like $50 and it comes with a 6-pack of games, and then support is just sort of like, okay, well, it's going to cost too much to implement this thing that people might use, because the way it works without, like you can still use any PS4 game with the headset, the VR headset. The catch is that all it does is simulate a screen in front of you, so it's like your own little virtual movie theater. If it's a game that's not fully tapped into the support of the proprietary title.
The difference, because yes, I agree, it could very easily just be Connect 2, and people will, or Connect 3, I guess at this point, and people will just wouldn't care. But the difference to me is that I feel like there's a lot of developer excitement about making VR games that wasn't there for Wii motion controls or Xbox Connect, where it feels more like the publisher was like, hey, we need you guys to implement this thing. We don't care how you do it, but please implement this thing. Whereas it feels like a lot of designers and companies are really excited to try doing something with VR. And if it ends up being a headache, if it ends up that they hate it, if EA and Activision and Ubisoft all decide like we're not going to do anything with this, it's just too hard to work with, then yeah, it's probably going to be the death of it. And you're going to have a weird looking, you're going to have another Virtual Boy that costs you $400.
Yeah.
But because of that developer excitement, as long as that experience remains good for them and positive, and as long as people are like, I'm reading an article right now about a game that was shown off today called Headmaster. That's going to be a launch title for PlayStation VR.
Do you get to be like the head of a school?
It's okay. This is all it is. It's Rusty's Real Deal Baseball with Portal humor, and all you do is head soccer balls at targets.
I'd play that.
It sounds really fun, and it looks entertaining. And so yeah, like I'm not really sold for VR, but if someone has a PlayStation VR headset, I'm gonna like chip in a few bucks to get them to download Headmaster, and I want to try it really bad.
See, that's my problem with it, though, is I don't think anybody that I know would shell out the money for that. Like, anybody that I hang out with or just associate with in general would shell out $400 for it. Like, yeah, I'll chip in a couple bucks and play a game on it, but only if someone else happens to have it.
So it's like you're buying a PS4 for $400, and then you're buying, or like $350. I'm not even sure. I think $350 is what they're at now. And then another $400 peripheral, and then a $60 like add-on on top of that.
Yeah.
So about $1,000 is the investment for this. And that's scary, thinking that, like, hey, how long will this be supported? And and I know that's we saw like the virtual headset that you can use outside of like the proprietary games. It's still kind of a scary investment to think that, like, well, I'm limited to whatever Sony is going to put out there. Whereas Oculus, even though it's a bigger investment up front, you can bet that the community of people that are going to be making crap for that is significantly larger and significantly more active. So it's like you might be pumping more into that experience, knowing that, like, people will make content for that. Whatever it is, people will actively, homebrewers will be doing stuff like crazy, and if it's not as accessible on the PlayStation 4 for anybody outside of, like, like larger developers, you could be facing a dud in terms of like a market share, whereas PC is going to offer you, there will be content, people will do stuff. I mean, people are still designing GameCube games to work, in 3D. So it's kind of a scary purchase until you see, like, if Naughty Dog jumps on board or Rockstar jumps on board, or you have like a developer that is of like a high pedigree that says we are making something, not just like a gimmicky one-off, like knock the plates off the thing in 3D kind of title, but if you had Grand Theft Auto 6 in first person with proprietary VR everything, that would be significant enough for me tonight to think about purchasing it, and I would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, if they just took Skyrim.
Oh my god.
Left it look the same, but just like, it's got VR controls now. Like,
yeah, you could just say Skyrim made for the PS3 and 360, but with PS4 processing to enable this in full 3D. That would be phenomenal. Throw 3D goats off cliffs all day. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. I want to see what the future of this thing is going to be, and I hope at E3 they announce a really large outpouring of support for this, because that's going to make the biggest difference, is to say what is the future of this from the consumer standpoint. Or if worse comes to worse, can you hook this thing up to your PC and mess around with it there? Because if so, it's probably a lot less risky, because it still opens up a ton of doors for the consumer.
Yeah.
But I don't know the details. I'm sure somebody will be able to modify it, so even if you bought a $400 Sony VR, you could get it to interface with your PC with probably very little issue. So, okay. So
did you see Hellblade? Ninja Theory's. Did you see Ninja Theory's video on that at GDC today?
I did not. I actually didn't get a chance to check out any of the GDC stuff.
So I will spoil it for you guys because it's worth talking about. But do go watch the trailer that they showed off, because this game, the best way I can describe it is that they've made this sort of Viking action game with Eternal Darkness sort of mechanics, where your character has psychosis and she hears voices in her head, and like she has to deal with hallucinations and things like that. But they showed off. I mean, the facial motion capture in this game looks phenomenal. It's on par with LA Noire. It might be better.
Oh.
And they had this big reveal that the trailer that they showed at GDC was actually performed live using facial motion capture. They pulled back the curtains, and they had the actress on stage with the technology they're using to do the motion capture, and they had her acting out what she was doing in the trailer.
Wow. Okay, I'm excited to check this out.
So it looks really good. I'm very, very interested to see what it looks like.
It's interesting to give a developer like Ninja Theory that kind of power. I mean, because they made Devil May Cry and they made Heavenly Sword and they did some stuff like that. So to give them like a technology advancement that goes far beyond just like solid gameplay is going to be extremely interesting. I'm kind of pumped to see what this is all about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And having just started, I don't know if I told you, I started to play. I didn't get very far, but I popped in DMC.
Oh yes.
Because I was looking for something to play, and I was like, I'm gonna put in DMC finally.
Mm-hmm.
And just from like I only played for like maybe 20 minutes before I had to turn it off and go do something else. But just from that first 20 minutes, I am really struggling to figure out how people don't like that game.
Yeah, it's
an amazing game.
I really think that it was set on principle of, I've already decided that I don't like this Dante because his hair is brown.
Yeah.
That was like the basis of most people's like argument. And hey, everybody's got their own opinion. They can do their own thing. If that's what they don't want to like about it, cool. But that game to me was so good on every level: presentation, music, the controls, the mechanics, facial expressions. It looked fantastic. Yeah.
I still have some friends who have refused to play it because of Jersey Shore Dante.
Like,
Yeah.
it's again, everybody's got their own thing.
And you know what? You know what you have
Yeah.
to do is you have to go back and show them the opening cutscene from Devil May Cry 3
Mhm.
and go, "This is the Dante you want."
Though I really do like that Dante. I think he's extremely ugly. And I like the new one more. To me,
He's
he just
ugly,
seems-
and he's just as ugly and just as obnoxious as DMC Dante is.
I do agree
He
with
just
that.
doesn't look the same. That's
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
thing that's changed.
Yeah. No, I think the new one looks great. I think he just looks like, straight gutter punk. And for me, there's something about that it's not that I identify with it more, because I don't really identify with either of them, but the idea of one of them seeming a little bit more relatable in terms of, like, I'm not just straight invincible, but I'm questioning why I'm here. I'm questioning my struggle. There's something about that to me that resonates a little bit higher. I love, when you play as invincible badasses, Ninja Gaiden, Bayonetta, but I also like when they have a moment to, like, not know what to do. When they look at their surroundings and they go, holy shit, what am I doing? Like, to me, I kind of like that. And I like that, like, this guy is sort of resistant. He deals with it because he has to, and he's capable, but he's the chosen hero that doesn't really want to be there. And I like that struggle.
Yeah, it's my favorite kind of hero, which I think Raydon and I have discussed before. The guy who doesn't want to be in the situation.
Yeah.
Or better yet, the guy who's with the hero who really doesn't want to be there is always my favorite character. The guy who's just there because his fucking friend is there, and that's the only reason he's in this stupid movie.
Yeah, I was like, fine.
Yeah. He's just sitting there constantly like, we gotta go home.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing?
What I liked about DMC especially was that, and this is one of my favorite things, is when something can say, like, there's probably limitations to this, but, like, Combat Christ is the primary part of that game soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no interest in listening to them by themselves. I played the game, was like, cool, this is cool. Turned on their music later, was like, this is not for me. This is not.
Did the same thing.
But in the context of the game, it works so unbelievably well that, like, I can't imagine that game playing without that soundtrack, because, like, it was the perfect marriage of concept. And that's interesting to me, is to think that, like, something that I would not normally like works in the context of that game, which makes me wonder, like, is there a circumstance in a video game under which I would like Linkin Park or Broken Side? And chances are I still wouldn't be sold. But the possibility remains that there could be some game that I play and some
the Breaking Benjamin song in Halo 2. Like, I'm not gonna listen to Breaking Benjamin, but that song sounds really cool in the context of Halo.
See, I am not that far in the Halo series.
Michael, do you know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, I missed that.
I was talking about the Breaking Benjamin song in Halo 2.
It's not ringing a bell.
Hmm.
If John and I ever finish fucking Halo 1...
Listen, okay, we'll do that soon. We'll do that next week. I'll bring the Xbox One to the store and we'll play it at the shop and finish it.
We're like a half an hour away from finishing that game.
Yeah, but, like, we've been in the same, like, bridge, like, 50 times, and I'm...
Yeah, we've been just walk down this tunnel, shoot the flood. Walk down this tunnel, deal with the flood. Walk down this tunnel. Hey, some more flood. Oh, there's snow now.
It can go the other direction though too. Not that that's the worst. It's just really repetitive and frustrating. But, like, there's that Godsmack song in the second Prince of Persia game.
Prince of Persia, yep.
And it still doesn't do it for me.
No.
No.
It made the experience, I felt, lesser.
Which is sad because at the time I actually liked Godsmack back in the day.
No.
And I heard that in that game and I was like,
Yeah.
really?
It changed the mood of the character for me, and, like, the mood of the game, which I think you can do in an appropriate way, but it made me feel like, I don't like to use the word sell out, but it made me feel as if they got lazy. Like, they stopped caring. They're like, well, what if the prince is just an asshole?
Yeah.
You know?
Which we've discussed before. Is like you liked him as the kind of, I don't know if wise, but like the kind of mysticky feeling storyteller guy.
He seems a lot more, like, straight, like he's got a story to tell, and he has an experience that he wants you to relive through his eyes instead of, like, remember that time when I was a dick,
Yeah.
Like, is what I sort of got from the
I
second
broke
game.
a bunch of shit. There were electric guitars playing.
Exactly. Yeah, I called this lady a bitch. Yeah, like, it didn't feel like I wanted to associate with him for that game.
Let's ask resident musician and Prince of Persia expert Adrian Ramirez what he thinks.
I like this guy. Let's do it.
Yeah, typically when you call people a bitch and you don't want to associate, I actually have no idea what the hell just happened. I walked into it; it was like a fever dream. All of a sudden, John's there in a suit and he's calling people bitches, which is totally unlike him and his character.
I don't know. This
Put a
is one
suit
guy
on, you act
that's
like an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, John. Were you just feeling frustrated? Was it the anger flowing through you because of Twilight Princess? I have no idea.
Ooh, ooh. Yeah, I don't know. That boss is pissing me off. But I felt like the Prince of Persia, on my second voyage, my sophomore endeavor, and we're discussing video games, instigating a mood based off of music that can either introduce you to something that goes, holy crap, this works way better than I thought, or conversely, you have music that you pop in and you go, this makes things just so much shittier,
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because yeah.
So like one thing that pops in my mind, and it's a weird sort of situation because it's not a narrative game, but from my understanding, when Neversoft was doing sort of the later Tony Hawk games, not the later, like the mid-range, like Tony Hawk 4, Underground 2, they had sort of in mind what they wanted to do for like half the soundtrack, and then the other half they would go out to the skaters whose likenesses they put in the game, and would be like, hey, well, what do you want to hear? Like, what's your song that you're really digging right now?
Yeah.
And that creates this sort of authentic experience. But someone, at least once a game, would pick like this classic rock kind of song or like classic metal song that A, I don't really like the genre to begin with, and B, doesn't fit with the rest of like the underground hip hop and punk music.
Was it Bucky Lasek?
It probably was Bucky Lasek, honestly, or Chad Muska.
Chad. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm like getting in like, oh, I like the soundtrack. When I have to check these bands out, and then like Kiss comes on, and I'm like, I don't care. I know who Kiss is, and I know that I don't like them. I don't want them here.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Like Grand Theft Auto 5, I love that game, but the soundtrack for it doesn't really do anything for me other than, that's kind of neat. Whereas Saints Row 3, the soundtrack is such a huge part of that game.
They almost
every other second.
More of a presentation than an ambience, though. Saints Row, like they really say this song specifically carries a mood, whereas Grand Theft Auto is kind of saying like, if you were in this city, what radio stations would play what songs? So there's sort of like an authenticity versus an active presentation, and I think it's kind of cool that there is a distinction there.
How cheap of a cop out is that though? Where it's just like this game's set in the '80s. Let's just put it. We'll put a radio station in there. We'll put 7 radio stations in there, and then that actually gave them the licensing excuse to just go ahead and put out like 8 soundtracks.
Yeah, they did. Radio station or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cop out, but at the same time, like for Vice City and especially San Andreas, it works because it's just so much a part of that fictional representation of that part of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like if you were in LA in 1991 or 1992, that is the music you would be listening to. That is what would be on the radio.
One of my favorite parts about San Andreas was that I was thrilled to find out that Faith No More is going to be on the soundtrack, but even more excited that they didn't choose Epic, which to me is like the most played Faith No More song, but they chose Midlife Crisis, which is still popular but lesser known, and putting that kind of representation in was really cool to me because it was like, this is still very 90s, but like that's almost like the B side of my experience.
Right. It's in the 90s or in a given year of the 90s, that's what you would hear, as opposed to if you were to like someone were to make you like, now that's what I call 90s music volume 6,
right.
You're going to put Epic on there because that's what stands the test of time more as opposed to being an actual sort of slice of life moment.
So interesting that they chose certain songs to represent this era, but so yeah, you could say cop out, but I also kind of like that there's sort of like a deliberate pick for what sets the mood, and I think with Grand Theft Auto 5, they have a very wide spectrum to choose from. They can just choose whatever because it's set in the modern day, so any era is available to them. Whereas say like in Vice City, you can't go past a certain threshold of music because that didn't exist yet.
Right. You can't have the time-traveling dubstep DJ in Vice City.
Super interesting. So they didn't have as much of like, EDM kind of stuff. They didn't have like a house channel. They didn't have like a rap station. They said, well, we've got like 90s rock, we've got 90s pop, or excuse me, 80s, but we can also go back to the 70s to an extent, and maybe even kind of the 60s. But like people are going to want the bright neon lights. They want the rock set. They want Bark at the Moon. They want like a very certain subset of songs that makes you go, oh, this has to be the 80s. This has to be, yeah.
Now, I can't recall. Did they have any talk radio stations in Vice City? It's been forever since I played it.
I don't remember.
Because I
think
kind of
so.
wanted just the experience of just driving around for 20 hours and just listening to like Alex Jones on the radio.
Paul Harvey is what I want.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
that'd be
Paul Harvey
great.
talk radio and like
You can listen. You just listen to audiobooks while you're driving around in Vice City. Murders are happening all around you.
I'd be okay with that.
The Shining, as read by Jack Nicholson.
Oh my God, that would be.
I feel like it'd be more like Alan Thicke if we're going like really.
Getting Alan Thicke, yeah, talk radio. I would like that.
Bleh.
Okay. So there's also another game that I think it just came out in Japan. It's going to be coming to the U.S. later this year. But I actually really hadn't caught up on this at all. But how many of you guys have heard of I Am Setsuna? Okay. So what this game is, and this, Graham especially, and Adrian, I'm excited to tell you all about this, but it's basically not in terms of like a story, but this is like a gameplay successor to Chrono Trigger.
Oh,
I was reading something about that.
Yeah, and it's from Square Enix, and it's coming out later this year for the PS4 and Steam.
Yeah, it was originally being slated for the Vita. I think in Japan it is for the Vita.
Yeah.
And then they looked at it for Western audiences and they said these guys don't own Vitas.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of
The
unfortunate.
article that I read
Yeah, they said
that it
we're
wasn't
gonna
coming to the Vita.
push this as like a home experience, like a. And I don't know much about like the story or anything, but one of like the most prominent things they showed was X Slash, and that's from Chrono Trigger. You have Frog and Chrono. And they can do this dual move where, depending on their position, they can cross-strike an enemy based on their position on the map. So what's really fun about this game's presentation is that it still uses the active time battle, and the environment in which your characters get into a fight is the active battlefield. And based on characters' positioning, if your characters are close together, if enemies are close together, certain moves are available that will utilize the environment and their positions. In addition to that, one of the things it said is the game has a very snowy, wintry theme, and all movement would sort of leave traces of movement in the snow. And I think, just like little details like that make it feel like it's a 90s RPG plus, based on like a modern visual engine. And story, again, I have no clue what's going on with this, but everything they've shown makes it very much look like, oh, wow, this is what Chrono Trigger felt like, and maybe in the mind's eye it looked a little bit more like this as well when you first played it. So that'll be coming out later this year, and it should be a fun one to check out.
Buy it, you jerks.
Yeah, dingus.
Hingus dingus.
Dingus. Also, let me see. This month, Street Fighter patch.
Finally. Yeah, we're getting Alex. We're getting 8. No, wait. Is 8-player lobbies this month? Or is
Lobbies is going to be this patch.
Okay, yeah. A trials mode.
Trials mode, challenges.
A proper tutorial.
Yes.
A shop.
Mm-hmm.
I think some like netcode tweaks as well. So.
If they're going to be doing 8-player lobby, yeah, I'm hoping that they have a couple things to really emphasize. And I'm assuming 8-player lobby is also going to really, I'm assuming between PS4 and Steam users with no problem.
So let me give you firsthand experience on this. I don't know if you know how frustrating it is to swap PS3 controllers into a PS4 like repeatedly. Like if you're doing it once, it's fine. You open up a menu, you click like Legacy Controller, because Street Fighter 4 does not natively support PS3 fight sticks.
That's right. There's an option to.
There's an option. They have access to a free patch that they could have implemented that would just read them natively, and they declined.
Oh.
So they have this option where you have to like click a button, you have to hook up the stick, you have to click a button, you have to make sure that the PS4 controller, there has to be an actual place, a DualShock 4 for each PS3 controller you're using. And and that controller has to be logged into a unique profile, and then at that point, you can play. But then if someone wants to pull their stick out and someone puts a different stick in, you have to repeat the process. It's really, really frustrating. But so one of the things we've been doing when we have people coming over to play Street Fighter is that, generally speaking, the first 2 or 3 people that come over will only have one DualShock 4 on hand, and so we can't play with 2 PS3 fight sticks. But I have Street Fighter 4 on my PC, which supports basically everything.
Yeah.
And that allows us to create an online lobby between the PC and the PS4 and just play on the HDTV.
Mhm.
And with the exception of a couple rare burps, it runs frame perfect. You can be playing on the PC version and be looking at the TV and not feel sluggish or behind or anything.
That's really
so
cool.
I'm confident that on that side of things, it's going to be great.
And there's no voice communication between the two, right?
You guys are in the same room together.
I don't know if there is or not, because generally speaking, the fighting game community does not use voice chat.
Right. That's what I would think. But yeah. Okay.
Speaking of updates, there was actually a Smash Brothers update just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you guys already talk about that?
We haven't talked about it yet. No, just a balance patch.
Yeah.
But
Another game that got patched this week, Warcraft 3.
Oh, right, I read about that.
Yeah, it's 13 years after the game came out, it just got another patch.
Didn't Knights of the Old Republic get a patch?
I think so, yeah.
But I had read up something about that. I thought, I'm sorry, I'm being rude with cookie in my mouth.
Well, I know that a lot of people were upset about Knights of the Old Republic 2 because it was sort of rushed and it wasn't really to BioWare's standard. There was a lot of unused content because they had intended it for it to be much larger, and they just got the boot to put the game out already. But if you get the Steam version of the game, you actually get access, third-party, independent modders went in and re-implemented all that content so that you can actually play the game as intended.
That's impressive. And they're doing a graphics engine overhaul, aren't they? Didn't they do Unreal Engine to redo the game visually? It looks pretty stunning.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you guys regarding that kind of Unreal stuff, because I see people post these videos of Mario or Donkey Kong or Ocarina of Time running in the Unreal Engine. And I look at these videos and I go, that looks neat, but I don't really care. And not because I don't think it doesn't look impressive, but because seeing it from just simply a mod standpoint doesn't thrill me because I'm not playing it. If I was playing something like that, or there was a full game representation, that would be one thing. But just watching Link run around at the Temple of Time, having it look super fancy, I go, oh, that would be nice. And then I just click the next video or whatever.
It's like what we all saw back in 1996. We'd see these videos and we imagined that's what the game looked like, and then we get it and it's all fucking blocks. It's like that Lego back there, that giant fucking Lego, but in a video game form.
That's an actual Ocarina of Time, is that Lego.
But it kind of goes along with what you were saying about Chrono Trigger. How it's this updated version of this thing that we fondly remember from our past, but visually updated. It's how you think you remember it, because obviously as children our eyes were broken,
right.
But as we grew up, they finally gained HD ability. But that's kind of how I think about it. Honestly, it's really neat. I saw the what was it at Death Mountain that just somebody just posted 2-3 days ago, and I was thinking, it's wow, that is what I remember seeing. But my brain is wrong.
Yeah, so that's your interpretation. Sonic Generations is very much like that for me, because that looks to me in my mind's eye as a kid, Sonic looked like that. It was exciting and it was fast and it was filled with these crazy colors that I hadn't seen before in 16-bit.
Did you ever have dreams like that as a kid, where you would dream about video games and it would be represented in that way? Because I remember having dreams like that, which I thought was pretty freaking neat.
Nothing I can cite, but I'd be surprised if I didn't.
See, I'm the mundane one because in general I have really boring dreams about going to work or sitting down and watching TV for a couple hours. I have really boring, mundane dreams. But I don't think of when I think of like Ocarina of Time or when I think of Mario 64 as a kid. Like I just watched the intro to Mario 64 last night and it looked exactly the way I remember it. And I've told you this story before, John. I don't know if Michael or Adrian have heard it before, but my brother, we had friends. Like my brother and he had a friend, and then that friend had a younger brother who was friends with me, and we were sort of like the same age. They got a Super Nintendo, and I had never, like, I wasn't even aware of the Super Nintendo because I was very young. I was like 6 or 7. And my brother was like, yeah, I went to their house, and they have a Super Nintendo, and he was describing to me, like, Mario World, and he was talking about A Link to the Past and how, like, yeah, you're in this dungeon, and, like, it'll flood with water, and, like, you can tell the depth of the water as the castle is filling up with water. And in my head, I'm picturing this completely photorealistic, like, giant sprawling castle with, like, lightning storms outside and, like, this awesome architecture. And then I got to play the Super Nintendo, and I was like, oh, well, this is cool. But it was not at all like what I had pictured in that moment, and so like I don't ever go back to a game and be like, this looks like crap. And it's just like, no, this is what I thought looked good. That's exactly how I remember it looking. Like,
To be fair, it's not like he oversold it. He accurately described what happened, and your lizard brain filled in all the details wrong, Michael.
yeah. Well, I didn't know. I played an Atari and I'd played a Nintendo, and like if you told me there was a Super Nintendo that was even better, like I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have the frame of reference to be like, oh, well, of course it's not like the most powerful technology anyone could possibly ever imagine. It's just twice as good. It's got a few thousand more colors and like better resolution. But I would never think that at that point in my life.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe a Super Nintendo as just twice as good as a regular Nintendo.
I miss that era because that was at a time when people were talking about, oh, I got the Genesis, well, the Super Nintendo's better. Yeah, well, the Genesis can do this. And I don't know if there was an era that was more important for saying, like, my specs are better than yours. I think people tried to carry that into, like, the 3D era a bit more. But between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, like, at the time, I could have given you every single reason why the Super Nintendo was superior from, like, a purely, like, computed standpoint.
Yeah, you would read like the press release from memory. You'd be like, well, the Genesis doesn't have Mode 7 scaling.
Yeah.
What a lot of you guys don't know is John Sakura's actually never played a video game. He's only ever read press releases.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'm up to date on a lot of public releases, press releases. But even like, excuse me, old video game magazines used to emphasize this as well too, because they would even have like a chart of here's what Super Nintendo does, here's what the Genesis does, and like some of them were super duper arbitrary and didn't make any sense. Like there was, the Genesis can display 64 of like 128 colors or whatever it was. Super Nintendo can do 256 out of 32,000 or whatever. But then like part of the list of like, well, the Genesis does have a faster CPU technically, and it was just like, oh, whatever, he's doing. But then at the bottom there was like another list. It was like which console's black, and it said the Genesis. It was just like, okay, that's one of your punches. And this is around the time of like when the software war was huge. Donkey Kong Country versus Vector Man, and Mario versus Sonic, and you had like exclusives dripping down the walls on both sides, and that was like the software battle.
That to me is the biggest deal. And that's why I think that generation stands out the most in that regard, is because obviously these days there's no difference. Like we had to decide on a console based on which controller.
Fundamentally the same.
And with like the NES versus the Master System, or even the N64 versus the PS1 and the Saturn.
Yeah, but how many people actually had the choice between an NES and a Master System? Like 1 out of 1,000 kids.
Europe and Brazil. That's about all I can give you.
Brazil still likes the Master System.
Yeah, they do. Tectoy makes it, if I'm not mistaken.
But like even in the N64 PS1 battle, like it felt very one-sided. Like as an N64 owner, we had oh my God, Banjo-Kazooie's coming out. Like, oh my God, Jet Force Gemini. We got really excited for the games that we had. But in a historical perspective, it feels very lopsided.
Oh yeah.
And the difference being that in the SNES Genesis era, like it was very much like the N64 PS1, where the libraries of games were so different in most cases, but it didn't feel like the Genesis was. It was maybe like a step or two behind in certain places, but it felt like it was just a pound for pound fight. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you like RPGs? Well, we've got like Shining Force
Yeah, we
or
got
Final Fantasy.
Or Beyond Oasis. Like they had an answer to everything.
Yeah.
I think what it was is that they had a lot to make up for, starting with that controller. I was never like the Genesis controller.
No, the first, yeah, it was really
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, the SNES has got 4 face buttons and 2 triggers. Well, we've got 6 face buttons and I think they had 2 triggers.
They had 1 trigger.
One.
Oh yeah, it switched modes, and it was like you press like start and mode at the title screen. That was the Genesis trigger.
Yep.
You could get like an ASCII pad, I think, and actually make it feel like a Super Nintendo controller.
Yeah.
And that wasn't bad. Those are actually pretty good. Or that was SG, I think. SG Pro Pad. I like those things.
They like you too.
They actually do. They wrote me an email. They're like, John, thank you for buying us 25 years ago. And I was like, yeah. Sure. Well, I remember actually the SG had the Pro Pad where it had like the 3 buttons around the rim of the A, B, and C, or A, B, X, and Y, or whatever they were on the Genesis. And you could program buttons to do certain things. So like you'd hold like the macro button, do the command, and then like tap the button once more.
I think I have that controller. Is the one with like the little LED screen in the...
Yeah, exactly. And so you could like program it to play Street Fighter, and you could just press a fireball at the tap of a button. And then if you wanted to reverse it, you'd hold like forward or like right or something and tap it, and it would like mirror it. So if you're on the other side, it was ridiculous and largely impractical ultimately. But yeah, they really thought like that was going to be, this is the secret weapon. You're going to bring this controller to a tournament, and nobody else can do anything because you're a god with that. Whereas a tournament would really just say you can't use that controller.
Yeah.
But yeah, the PlayStation 1 era was interesting because I look at the 64 library very fondly. I can think of 50 great games that I would play at a moment's notice tremendously. At the same time, a lot of those I think are sort of isolated personal experiences where I could be like, dude, I loved Chameleon Twist, I loved Duke Nukem 64, I loved this and that. Whereas on the PlayStation in general, you'd have a much broader spread of people that would be like, oh yeah, well we just had Square Enix. And
Yeah.
you already have 20 games right there with no problem. And then you had Sony, who was actually developing really good stuff for themselves, and you had Insomniac, and you had Naughty Dog, and you had people who were coming out of the woodworks and just making these games that, who knew, were going to be tremendously memorable for lots of people.
Mhm.
Oh, you got your Mario Kart, well, that's cool. We got Gran Turismo, and people were flocking to Gran Turismo.
Yep.
And the accessibility of the PlayStation blew my mind, especially when the Saturn was out at the same time, and people were just like, eh.
Yeah.
Like nobody cared. I remember getting one and renting it, and like I was so excited to play Tomb Raider on my Saturn, and I regret that. But it was, I rented my Panzer Dragoon, and it's not that I don't love my Saturn, but like it really was just an experience that was not as presentable as what Sony genuinely did offer at that time. And that's the end. And now you know the rest of the story. I'm Paul Harvey. Good day.
Man, that was the best game I've ever played.
Paul Harvey
Vice
on the
City.
Saturn.
Paul Harvey 64.
Like,
You get Paul Harvey
like
on
for-
64 on the Saturn.
For about a good 10 seconds, I felt like I was playing my dream of Vice City with Paul Harvey in the background.
I wish.
Yeah.
What I didn't give. So during that era, what was your system of choice? What was everybody's, what was your go-to during that time?
5th gen, like N64, PS1 Saturn.
Yep.
We were an N64 household. I didn't actually get my first non-Nintendo system. Well, I got one in high school. I bought a Genesis off of a friend of mine, and it came with a 32X. So that's why I have a soft spot for the 32X. But yeah, I didn't get a Sony. I didn't get the PS1 until 2001. So yeah, N64 was all the way for me.
Did you play any of the big PlayStation titles before then, like what, friends' houses or anything?
Yeah, I got to play. Well, it was really frustrating because the first time my friend borrowed a PlayStation from like someone, and he just like called me. He's like, "I'm playing Tekken, and I'm playing Loaded, and I'm playing like all these games." And I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta come over to your house and play." He's like, "Oh, my mom says you can't right now." And I was just like,
Ah.
but they ended up buying one when Final Fantasy VII came out, and so like I spent a lot of time in their basement. I'd have to wait my turn. I was the guest, and so like his brother would play, and then he would go to work, and then my friend would play, and then he would go to sleep, and I would stay up from like midnight to 7 in the morning drinking Pepsi and playing Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy Tactics.
God, that sounds nostalgic.
It's to this day I can't enjoy a Pepsi if it's like not after midnight.
Weird.
Yeah.
I like that somebody else's experience can actually feel nostalgic to me, because that sounds very, like, nostalgic.
Yeah.
Huh.
And we had the Brady Games strategy guide for Final Fantasy VII, and I was like, cool. I'm gonna find all the materia and do all this fun stuff. The one game though that really it was really weird because I wasn't into the concept at the time. But hey, Mike, Bupkis, how's it going?
Hi, you can actually hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hooray!
Hey, was your microphone just off for like an hour?
Yeah, I've been talking for a while now.
Oh.
I've been messaging Radon trying to troubleshoot it.
I told him to yell Bupkis, and that's how I knew that it was working.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was like in the 8th grade, I think I decided I wanted a PlayStation, and I made like a spreadsheet, like how much money am I going to need? I'm going to need this much for the system, this much for the memory card, and then I was like, what games do I want? And I wanted Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Tactics, but I'd also spotted Parappa. Like I really wanted to play Parappa the Rapper, and that was kind of the one game that made me like decide. Even though I loved the other Final Fantasies that I played, like Parappa came out, and I was like, I need a PlayStation.
That's the one.
And I still don't own that game. But that's my answer.
Yeah. Okay. So 64, and then PlayStation eventually came down, and it was Parappa that sold you on that eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you guys?
I never owned an N64, but my uncle did, and I spent a lot of time at his house as a kid. So I played a lot of. He was big in Zelda. He was actually the guy who introduced me to Zelda when I was a kid on Super NES. And so he had. Man, I got an echo here. So he had Ocarina of Time. He had Majora's Mask. But then I also played a lot of just weird games like because my other uncles also had an N64 too, and I spent a lot of time at their house. And what did we played a lot of battle tanks, like so much battle tanks. That was great.
Mhm.
Beetle Adventure Racing.
Oh, so good.
I remember, playing a lot of that. Cruising USA, I believe. I can't remember if that was for 64. I think we,
Mhm.
I think, yeah, we played a lot of that too. A lot of racing games.
There's a good amount of them. The San Francisco Rush 1 and 2.
Yeah, a lot of Rush, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a lot of Zelda. Like my whole childhood, my entire life has been marked with just playing through Zelda over and over and over because I'm probably mildly autistic. I don't know. But yeah, the times I absolutely remember the most, and because that was like when I was maybe 10 to 15 or so. And that was like a lot of, late night staying up, because I was kind of getting to that age, and my uncles are only a few years older than me, so they were almost like older brothers more so than uncles. And so we'd stay up, on weekends, and we would play, a lot of racing games, and watch. They introduced me like to Naked Gun movies and stuff like that. So just bad pizza, shitty carbonated drinks, and lots and lots of Beetle Adventure Racing as a kid.
Excuse me. Okay, that's good memories. Interesting to see what kind of experiences people have. And yours was primarily a lot of racing games, and I kind of like the idea of maybe just your uncle's choices, but like that's what influenced you. And you played a lot of really great stuff too. Those all sound really good. But,
GoldenEye too. Lots of GoldenEye.
Lots of GoldenEye. That's the staple. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry I'm coughing so much.
You should be.
Well, I'm still sorry. What about you, Graham?
Oh, we were in N64 house all the way.
Hmm.
We were pretty much Nintendo everything until the original Xbox hit, and then that kind of skewed things. But we've talked about it before,
Mhm.
like just us sitting down playing GoldenEye and watching how cool it was when you shot someone in the foot and they started hopping.
Yeah.
Like,
Remarkable.
but that game was one that actually turned me, or that system was one that turned me off of Zelda for a while, because I got Ocarina of Time. Like, I bought it with my own money, was very psyched about it. And then my little brother went out and bought a strategy guide for it, and then played through the entire game in front of me with the strategy guide and just ruined it for me. And if I complained, my parents would tell me to stop being an asshole and let him play the game. And yeah, so I was like, you know what, fuck Zelda. Fuck all this. I'm done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So now we're discussing this era of video games, late 90s. And I wanted to do a little bit of trivia for somebody to get the chance to win a free T-shirt from the store. Okay.
Free T-shirt
And-
trivia time, guys.
So what I need to do is, if anybody's watching this, there should be a Q&A button on the I don't know, because I'm not on that side of the event page, but there should be like a Q&A thing where you can click and submit a question to us. So I actually want to see who all is able to click and submit. Also, sorry, I'm wearing shorts because. Anyway, if anybody is watching, I want you to be able to submit your answer, and I would like to see people. Oh, that's really funny. Sorry, Michael just sent me a link to something important. I want everybody to verify that we have 4 viewers according to this. We might have more because I don't know if it always displays everybody. But if you're watching, I would like you to get the opportunity to win this thing. And if I could verify that we have 4 different people eligible for winning, go ahead and enter your name off to the side. And if not, I'll ask the question, and I guess the first person to answer wins, and that's it. So we'll give them a couple minutes. But I want to make sure that anybody who wishes to participate can. That's important. This is going to be a Final Fantasy question, by the way. And you can do a little bit of research, and you can try to give this answer, but you basically are going to have to present something to me phonetically, because do you know which one this is?
I think I know what this is.
From Final Fantasy VII?
Oh, maybe not. Oh, okay, no, I think I know where you're going. I know where you're
Okay,
going.
yeah. And this is one of the trickier ones because this is something that most people ever get incorrect. Totally fine, because there's no real revelation behind this other than it's just something from a different language that's pronounced incorrectly all the time. Okay, so we have Pete watching. Okay, so that's one person watching this. One person watching.
One. I hate you, John. That was mostly what you missed out on while my mic was dead. It was just me telling you that I hate you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Not surprising. Okay. Pete's watching. Anybody else? Pete, you might just win a T-shirt if you get this. So this might be a
Just
very
sticking through.
easy bit of trivia. So, okay, we'll give it another minute or so.
You got to be on the Google Plus. It's not enough to be on YouTube or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, you have to go to the Google Plus that I linked to originally, which is going to be the event page where you can type in and answer questions. Women love it, by the way. And if you're a woman, you love it.
I'll give you guys a hint. Think about Ryan Reynolds.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's just it's not a specific hint. I just think it's something that'll help you get through life.
Yeah, just in general. Van Wilder. Think
Not
about
Van Wilder too, though.
Yeah, no, that's wrong.
The Rise of Taj.
Rise of Van Wilder. Okay, well, so we might just have one person entering this thing, but if somebody mysteriously comes in and texts me on my phone with it, I'll keep my eye looked on both locations, so we'll see. But okay. So in the game Final Fantasy VII, you come across a character that is a cat riding on a Moogle. phonetically written, how do you pronounce his name? That's what I want to know.
Someone shooting a gun?
Like a little tiny BB gun. Oh boy. All the ghosts are deep throating me tonight. Or I'm deep throating them.
Yeah, you're deep throwing them.
Oh. Moogle, cat writing on it. How do you pronounce his name phonetically? Write it out. You text it to me. You can send it up here to the event page. It's the only place I'm going to be able to see it, so if it doesn't show up there, I'm not going to read it. And people are probably going to go to research for this, which is fine, so whoever can research it the fastest. But if somebody natively knew how to say it, they would answer immediately, and that's sort of what I was hoping for. But this is one of those really weird ones. So.
What?
In its actual native language, and it's pretty close, Pete. Pretty close, but like no, in the actual original pronunciation, not Japanese. And Aaron just texted me and said Kate Sith, which is incorrect. That's how it's written. That's not how it's pronounced.
This Aaron?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
She didn't
Nope.
look amused by that.
And Pete, you're really close.
Bum, 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 bum. So you're looking for the English pronunciation.
English
the
pronunciation of this, because I mean it's technically a Celtic pronunciation, so not Japanese.
You're not Japanese.
I was. Yeah, I used to be Japanese.
Used to be.
Don't lie to me.
Have you ever thought about doing one of those like ancestry tests, Michael, to find out where you come from?
Yeah.
Eat Hackman's cheese.
And then I didn't.
Oh.
Like I saw a commercial for one, and they're like, this woman was like, "My big surprise is that I was like 27% Native American," and I thought that that's a really high percentage for her to be completely unaware.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
usually
Like, that just
like
basically means like
116.
one of her grandparents had to have been Native American, and no one ever told her.
Cat says Ketchi. Boom.
Well, hold on, wait. What if no? There's a way you could do that. Like, what if one of her grandparents was half Native American and the other one was also half Native American, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's possible. It's possible.
Ketchi. By the way, sorry, I got a winner texted to my phone. Ketchi is how Kate Sith is pronounced.
You were all excited, and we
Yeah.
were just on a different conversation already.
I know. Well, the trivia. I mean, the trivia is important. You know, I told people they could win something tonight, but Ketchi is how that character's name is pronounced. And it is a Celtic fairy.
You're
So,
a Celtic fairy.
Wait, Ketchi, Kashyyyk,
Ketchi?
Ketchi. Isn't that Chewie's home planet?
Kishik. Or Kashyyyk? Kashyyyk?
Like
I don't
like
know,
4
something
Y.
like that. Kashyyyk.
Now, if you asked that question and somebody said Ketchi, would you count it correct or not?
Say, what was your question once more?
If you asked the question, what was Chewie's home planet, and somebody said Ketchi, would you give them a prize or no?
I do not know enough about Star Wars pronunciation to feel qualified for that.
I would
I think
say
John
no.
thinks the answer is Melmac.
Yeah, if it's an alien planet and it's not Melmac, I don't care at all about your planet.
That's true, actually. He doesn't.
Yeah. Like, the two planets I care about are Earth and Melmac because that's the two places Alpha's been. Oh, he's been to Alvin and Dave before. Those are other planets that he talks about that Willie doesn't believe are there. And Ryan almost flunks the science test because Alpha's trying to add Alvin and Dave to a science project, and the teacher gets mad, and then Willie gets proven by Alpha that they're there because he pulls out his space chart.
I could listen to this all day.
I can tell you everything about
Yeah.
Alpha if you want to know.
Smells like hot chocolate.
Like just 10 minutes of you a day talking about an episode of Alf you watched 20 years ago.
No, it was like 3 months ago.
Well,
That's-
yeah, 3
that's
months
the
ago,
problem.
but
I
the
watched-
first time you watched it was like 20 years
Once a
ago.
year. At least once a year I watch the whole series.
Did we ever figure out what episode the awesome hot chocolate line is in?
No, I'm just going to have to watch the whole thing again because I don't remember. It's actually coming up.
It's so
on my,
good.
It is on my watching time, so. Yeah. Pretty good. I feel like I wrote down one or two more things in terms of notes for this. Oh.
Oh,
Imagine.
We
Nailed it.
talked about this previously because I was sick last week. But Super Nintendo games on the 3DS, new 3DS, specifically Virtual Console.
Yep.
Effectively rendering it my favorite thing to hold in my hands ever.
They've picked some good games to start too.
That's what I'm impressed with, is they like pulled out big guns immediately.
We got Mario, Zelda, Pilot Wings.
Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2.
I
But
think
does
all
that-
three. I think it's
Does
all
that
three.
really surprise anybody, though? I'll be honest. Like, every time that they launch a new console, you always have, like, those 2, 3, 4 properties that they always push because they know that's what people want. You know, so, I mean, the fact that they want to get people on board with the whole new 3DS is the only system that can do this. And that bothers me.
It
Well,
bothers me too because I know like you can run an SNES emulator on a Dreamcast.
So, well,
But-
here's the thing, because I did a lot of research on exactly what they're saying, and the thing is, they don't want to run it as simply just an emulator that will work. They want to run it as an emulator that will, like, pound for 100% nail the experience.
Yeah, they said it's pixel perfect, which is
Yeah, like they matched this thing to be like, oh, this isn't just a good version of a Super Nintendo game. It's like this is the version of the Super Nintendo game that you played 100% without fail, from sound effects to frame rate to control nuances. And it's
The
not to say
problem-
that- yeah.
the problem with that essentially for me is that you can still do that. You could probably still do that on the 3DS as long as you're not doing things like Star Ocean or Kirby Superstar or Mario RPG, which are games that we may not get.
Right.
Period.
So
Like-
in order- if the problem-
Can't they just do that? You know, where it's like it's backwards compatible with all 800 and something games from the SNES library, except for these 4.
Yeah, like if you
I would
want
be
this
okay with
game-
that.
See, but I don't know if a lot of people would,
I don't care
or if they
about
want to present that to people, saying, "Hey, you can play all of these, but these big titles just because Mega Man X1, 2, and 3 are coming out in Japan, and with like the Super FX chip and stuff that's running on that, that's also going to be like a bit trickier to implement, and even some hackers, because I looked into like the homebrew scene to see what these guys had to weigh in on, and some of them were like, no, this is doable, but not perfectly. Like you can emulate, you can get these things to run, but you can't nail it 100%. And I feel Nintendo is the kind of company that isn't going to push something unless it feels like it's 100% in terms of like an emulator experience, because the Game Boy is obviously easy to do, so they have no problem doing that. The Sega nailed it with the Game Gear emulation, but if they couldn't say, it makes it easier for them to say ultimately, hey, it's gonna be minimal effort for them to port a ROM over to Virtual Console emulation. Well, if the hardware can do it easily, rather than say we have to retool this game to maybe get it to work on an original 3DS, and there still might be hiccups. And I feel from a presentation and company logistics standpoint, they didn't want to create extra work for themselves on that end, which I do understand, because it is extra money. But, it's just, it's tricky. That's all I'm going to say.
It is.
So I understand why they did, because even a lot of hackers really did come out and say it's emulation's doable, but if you wanted to get a 100% experience, that requires significantly more effort. And if you just say, well, this hardware can run at 100% by just popping the ROM in, why not just do that? So, because they might do Kirby Superstar, and they might do, Star Fox, and they might do Mega Man X. Well, they're doing Mega Man X3, and if they don't have to worry about any technical limitations to just, get those on there, Path of Least Resistance makes the most sense. Plus it sells more hardware for them, which is clearly, like a business maneuver, but.
I'm still mad about it.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's because you don't have a new 3DS. If you had a new 3DS.
Yeah, no, understandable. It makes
Like
sense.
at this time in my life right now, I am an incredibly casual gamer. And so like for instance, like when Pokemon Red and Blue got re-released a few weeks ago, I was first in line over at GameStop to go get it because I was excited about that. But that was probably the first game I've played with any regularity in probably over a year.
Mm.
And it was like it's great. Like I think I bought that 4 years ago now. Wow, it's been a while. And I hardly ever play it unless like a new game comes out. I play that for like a day or two, and beat it, and then I don't touch it for like 6 months. My life is very sad. Sorry, John, I disappoint.
You don't disappoint at all. Not at all. I actually rarely play anything. I picked up Pokemon Yellow like 3 weeks ago, and I played it for like an hour the first night, and that's it.
Yeah, same here. I never actually game anymore. Well, like we were saying, John and I have been on like the last couple levels of Halo for what, 6 months maybe?
Yeah, since the game came out.
Of Halo 1.
Yeah.
Just
Well, since the game came out, since the anniversary, like their Master Chief Collection or whatever came out for Xbox.
yeah, we picked it up and powered through a bunch of it, and then just never went back to it.
Yeah, that's most games with me.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got to treat yourself. I don't have a lot of time to game either, but I make poor life choices sometimes and force myself to. So.
Blame Aaron.
I want to, but when I was sick last week, I should have caught up on a bunch of games. I hate playing games when I'm sick.
Really?
Yeah, because like I want to rest, and games are fun, but I also don't want to associate playing a game with feeling awful. And like I feel like
See, okay,
play
this is
well.
your opportunity to play Koei games, John.
Oh God. Okay.
Nobunaga's Ambition and the Flu.
That's what should have happened last week. That would make me fall asleep.
Because yeah, you just take a nap and you get rested and you feel better.
In the game or IRL?
In IRL, but at the same time, the game doesn't require any like frame perfect input from you. So if you fall asleep in the middle of a turn, you just wake up and they're still waiting for you to feed them.
Oh, see, then I feel guilty. I'm in charge of an army, and they're just like, we really want food, and I'm like, well, I'm going to bed, so.
Yeah, but time's not moving.
We'll address that when I get up. I feel bad about that. I'd be a sweet Genghis Khan. Also, I showed my dad Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the first time ever, like a couple weeks ago at the store.
The movie or the game?
The movie. I should make him play the game and see what he does. He would be able to- I can't figure it out. You just throw pudding cups at like knights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know, all this talk about you being sick and hating playing games has got me thinking, especially with this. What was that game you guys were just talking about? I've never heard of it. Where you had to feed your army. What?
Oh, like Nobunaga's Ambition?
Okay. Apparently, what is this? The stress of a non-existent army of people depending on you is stressful to you. What would make this more stressful? Would it have to be a timed thing? Would it have to be
it would
like
have to be like a Tamagotchi? Exactly. A Tamagotchi of an entire Japanese army from the 12th century.
Yeah. that would be definitely bothersome. I guess you could pause it, but at the same time, I think there's like a thrill in knowing that like these people depend on me, and I'm just like, I'm too tired for you to survive. That's the ultimate god complex. That's like Black and White 3. Oh, speaking of Lionhead,
Yeah.
there it is, man.
that's a thing.
It's
GG.
interesting to think that like they're an interesting company to me. Because I remember when I first played Black and White, and I was pretty impressed with just like, this fun sort of God simulator.
I
And
love
then
that game.
The hype that came up after Fables, and then Black and White 2, and then more Fable games kept coming out, and it was like, wow, these guys, they're not meeting their ambition, but they're still doing a lot of really impressive stuff. What's their future going to be like? And the fact that it really petered out long ago, actually, is interesting to me, because Fable 3, I remember sort of being medium received at retail, anywhere I worked anyway. And then, like Fable Connect, I don't think very many people cared about too much at all. But they went from being like this company that's like, dude, Peter Molyneux, right? He's the name. Peter Molyneux is doing this. Peter Molyneux's announcing that. And they've been effectively dead for years. And only now are they finally saying, like, yeah, this is pretty much it. The new Fable's canceled, and they're done. And it's interesting to think that it's getting publicity now, even though they almost haven't been relevant for a while, and they used to be super, like, at the top of the names.
Yeah, they didn't know. I read a report that Lionhead was unaware they were being shuttered until Microsoft told everyone else that they were being shuttered.
Yay.
Bureaucracy.
So I'm just, yeah, we're going to work on Fable beta again today. And then you just like, I'm going to pop on IGN real quick and see what people are saying about our cool game. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, no. Oh, I'm fired.
Yeah, well, I guess we don't have a game to make. That's sad.
It is sad.
You know, and I remember when it was exciting to be like to have like a Fable announced. You know, 'cause Fable 1 got all this acclaim, and I played a little bit. I wasn't crazy about it, but I enjoyed it. And Fable 2 came out. I actually really wanted to know what the hype and the fuss was about, so I played all the way through it. And I cheated for the endings as well, where I saved right before I had to make a decision. Got an ending, got the achievement, reset the game, got the other ending. I didn't play through it 3 times, not at all.
Fable 2 was also, I remember being like really, because I'm an achievement hound. I like going for that stuff, and
Yeah.
I think Fable 2 and Fable 3, but I know Fable 2 for a fact. All the achievements are like, do this thing or watch another player do it.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
You can just tag along as an observer on someone else's game and just watch them play through all of Fable 2 and get all the achievements.
That was a weird
Yeah.
mechanic, the way that the 2 players implemented. Where you're
But they
playing with somebody
tried it.
remotely, but you're locked onto their screen still.
Yeah.
It's very impractical. It actually almost makes it better as just like an observer. It's like you're a ghost, like you're their dead friend, and you get to sort of just see what's happening.
What is it, like a specialized Netflix, but just for watching one game?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I got
You could play with them, but it was like an old like Super Nintendo game where you're both locked to the same screen. So player 1 dictates where everything goes, and whoever's the guest gets to sort of just hang out on the screen and do something. It's like Little Brother mode or whatever.
To bring this conversation full circle, John, I really like the idea of an Xbox One PS4 crossplay game where you play like the Xbox player is like your friend and the PS4 player is that friend's ghost, like a ghost of a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
And you have to like intervene in their life and make things okay, but you can't communicate with them at all.
This is hold on. You realize this is coming ultra full circle to where we were discussing on our very first Cyberzone podcast how we had that game Sightless.
Yeah.
Remember? Okay, yeah. And to bring people up to speed, it's a game that we were gonna make, where one person like uses like the Wii remote and like the nunchuck, and they're blind and they walk around and they have to try to like make their way out of their house, without like destroying things, breaking a window or knocking over a vase or pouring milk all over the cat or whatever. And all you can do is use the Wii remote and stuff. But like it simulates your hands, so you have to be really careful. But you're trying to feel your way through this environment. And player 2 can see, but they can't interact. They have to sort of like communicate with you somehow what to do, and like hey, watch out because there's a curved hallway coming up, and there's a vase on a pedestal, so you don't want to knock it over. And the game is called Sightless. And eventually you go visit places like antique
A
museums.
supermarket. Yeah.
But the big catch, and this is the scary part. It's kind of like the movie It Follows, but way before It Follows, because I'm a revolutionary. Is Eyeball Dad, and that's the monster, Eyeball Dad, and it's your dad, except he's made out of eyeballs. And no matter what you're doing, he's constantly coming for you as the crow flies. And what the closer he gets, this really jarring like violin music starts playing and freaking you out. So like you don't know where he is. He could be any direction around you within like a half-mile radius. But the music just gets louder and louder until he gets you, whatever spooky thing that means.
I also like the idea of like every blind person having a rally car spotter as a friend. So hairpin left.
Yeah, you're
Jump
blind,
ahead.
but you want to get the opportunity to do all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go parachuting, and you want to go to the shooting range, and you want to go become a makeup artist. I think there's a genre for blind simulation that is just untapped at this point.
I feel like all the DS like Imagine like fashion and Imagine babies,
Yeah.
those should have all been blind mode.
Yeah.
More
Both screens display nothing.
Yeah.
I like
You turn it on.
Play to your friend.
No feedback. You just have to sit there and imagine.
Truly imagine. What would a horse be like if it were standing in a field? Yeah.
You know a game I've been wanting to play for a while, and it sounds like the same similar concept. Keep talking and nobody explodes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this. I want to try that.
Did you see the video of the guy who created a speech bot to play the game single player?
No.
It's really entertaining because he defuses the hardest bomb in the game, but he created the script that he talks to, and it records the data. So he'll be like, Quadrant 2, A1, B3, red wire, triangle, and the robot takes all this data in, and then using what the player who normally does, like who has the manual, it has that information as well, and it'll take his input and then decode what the output needs to be. and so like he has this. He's talking to a robot to defuse this bomb, and it's actually tense to like watch because there's a couple points where like it misunderstands him or like it's a really cool video.
Okay, I'll have to check that. A lot of interesting stuff out there, man. A lot of people that do weird, fun, creative things. Makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know what the most creative thing that anybody's done recently? Tried to completely defraud all of Kickstarter.
Oh yeah? I don't know if I heard about this.
I also did not.
I know where this is going.
Okay.
I can
Straight
smell.
outside of-
I
straight
can
on
smell
that
an
press.
Adrian lead in from a mile away.
Adrian
Who
is
would
bad at
possibly
lead-in.
defraud all of Kickstarter?
Who could have? Very creative people, or at least they thought they were creative. The Calico Chameleon.
Oh right. Yeah.
Jeez.
That situation is a mess.
I'm just waiting for the made-for-TV movie to come out, where like an insider from the retro video game system team like talks on the condition of anonymity, and they made a made-for-TV movie based on his experience working with them. I'm just hoping that somebody makes that at some point, and then it never gets watched. But just this whole idea that not once, not twice, but what, 3 or 4 times that they put together a prototype, a demo model that happened to be not anything that it was supposed to be. And what was the last one, Michael? It happened to be what, a video capture card.
Capture card.
Turned sideways inside of a clear Jaguar shell.
Yep. When that was the proof that that they had real hardware.
Oh, that was amazing.
And if I'm not mistaken, Adrian, you were actually, like, I think there were like a couple of these claims that were coming up, and if I remember correctly, you were still sort of supporting these guys and saying, you know what, like, this is going to be a thing, this is going to be cool, I believe in you guys. And
Yeah, like I'd say about, what, 5 months ago?
Yeah.
This was? And I don't think that what was it? That was right when the first defraud happened. They had shown, I think it was Mike Kennedy showing off what he said was a prototype running something, and it almost looked like a graphic user interface for like an early 90s computer. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about programming. Maybe this is what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because I liked the concept and I liked the idea. And I think what really made me really mad about the whole situation was that because I was like, instead of immediately calling them out, which I think a lot of people do on the internet really quickly with stuff, maybe with good reason, maybe with not, but everybody's an active social warrior nowadays, and it becomes tiresome. I'm just like, come on, just give them a chance. They're trying to make a new video game system. Shut the fuck up. And I felt like I was taken for a ride. You know, I was ready, willing, and able to pay them the regular fee, and I would drop all the rest of my Preston shares, and if they devote their attention to the Calico Chameleon and actually coming out with it.
I remember seeing a post that you had recently, and it was, you know, like from a place of dropped faith. It was very sad to see because it was honest.
From here to here.
And yeah, I was very impressed. I really liked that you had written that because it's, I think, really important to know that, like, you know, you will have people that will defend you, but if it gets to the point where even your defenders look at the situation and go, man, you guys are just ruining everything. Like, as a company, you have to, like, stand back and, like, take a look at what you're doing and saying, like, can we continue with good conscience about, you know, following through with any of this?
What I think I had initially grasped onto with the whole project was that so many projects fall by the wayside without any kind of support. And I know I've tried to do projects in the last few years where that kind of thing had happened. And I'm like, well, how is this thing going to flourish and blossom if everybody's just talking shit about them? You know, it's like, come on, just give them a chance, guys.
Sure.
And there's only so much good faith you can put out there before it's like you exhaust it. What was it, the phrase you used earlier, taking for a ride? Was that what you said early in the episode?
I think you said that.
Somebody said that.
I think it was you, but that's okay.
You, dude.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like at the beginning of this episode, you're talking about people who just take
The take.
Oh,
the
being on
take. On being on a take. There we go.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, that's different.
I wasn't trying to quote myself. It's
Oh,
like
I'm
yeah,
sure
whoever
it's
said
I'm
that
sure
was a
someone said
genius.
something really clever about being taken for a ride.
But yeah, being on the take, and there's only so much you can kind of put out with that before you feel just taken advantage of as somebody who's willing to give support and willing to be an evangelist for something that essentially it hadn't even been proven. It was just like it seemed like they had all the right ducks in a row. It's been a while since I've even looked at the project anymore because I kind of like after Retro VGS kind of died and then it got resurrected as the Coleco Chameleon, and I have no idea what even happened there. It's just it just boggles the mind. How could so many wrong things happen in a row, other than it being a conscious effort on their part?
Can I play crappy devil's advocate?
I'd love, dude. I love Keanu Reeves. Yes.
What if the whole point of, what if we're looking at this the wrong way, and the vision of the Coleco Chameleon is to have the opportunity to plug a Genesis cartridge into a Jaguar that reads off of Super Nintendo hardware with a TurboGrafx controller, and you can play like Neo Geo games?
Yes.
Wait, are the Neo Geo games on Genesis carts?
Yes, they're on Genesis carts being run through a Super Nintendo motherboard, housed in a Jaguar case with TurboGrafx controller ports. This is a whole new way to experience classic gaming content.
What I want to know is, are there any like 16-bit systems of all like the 16-bit systems? There are. Fuck, let's even go between the 8 and 16-bit systems, and don't say Sega Master System and Genesis together because that's a different situation. Is there any way you could reroute the pins on like any of these cartridges to have them have something come up on a system they're not meant to be played on?
Kind of. There's an adapter that I bought for the Super Nintendo, and it's really weird the way this works. And you plug it into the Super Nintendo itself, and you put a Genesis game on top, and you can play Genesis games through your Super Nintendo. However, it still has its own, and it uses the Super Nintendo power supply and the controller input, but the Genesis adapter itself actually has its own AV output.
It's the Retro Gen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, it's got its own AV output out of the cartridge itself. So it's basically, it's like a Genesis on, like NOA on a chip?
Yeah, it's really strange.
NOAC?
Yep.
I'm going to say no because of the different processor languages used. Without doing like emulation or something like that on a chip, just probably not. You're
Like
able to get something. You probably get like garbled data.
Oh,
I
I'd
don't
love
think
to see garbled data. If I could control garbled data, I would be happiest man ever.
No, I don't think you'd be able to control it. I think you would just get garbled data.
Just garbled data.
Yeah.
Well, the whole reason this came up was like, okay, your whole idea of Neo Geo cartridges, inside of Sega Genesis cartridges being played with TurboGrafx 16 controllers. But you know about the was it the Master Gear converter or no? Sorry, the Sega Master System converter base.
Yeah, the
Okay.
power base converter.
Yeah, power base converter. And they have a new version of that now. A company makes it as a third party, where essentially it's just like it's almost like Sonic and Knuckles, where you just kind of place it on top. It's basically a Sega Master System or a pass through essentially. It's like it didn't need to be as big as it was because it's just rerouting the pins. Thoughts?
Well, I think another part of that too is that I think the power base converter was kind of designed into the Genesis architecture without being a part of it, much in the same way that the Super Nintendo originally had plans to be backwards compatible with the NES, and they just didn't include that in the hardware because of cost concerns. But I feel like they could have, had they chose to, they could have released a converter like the power base converter at some point. I think that's the only real reason why that works. Either that or it runs on similar architecture. Like I think the sound chip is FM synth based still and all that
Yeah, with
good
the
stuff.
the Mega Drive, it has the same. It has like what is it? It has auxiliary processor in there. That was the same one that they used in the Master System. So that's why that runs. And essentially, it just reroutes the pins, and whatever. Long story short, fuck the Coleco Chameleon. Long story short.
Makes me feel sad because I remember reading about the Chameleon, and they were like, "Yeah, we're getting all these cool licenses from official companies, and Capcom, we're going to release Ghouls and Ghosts on this Coleco, and it's going to be so sweet." And ultimately, it's just going to be like a Super Nintendo ROM of that game on a different looking cartridge.
Yep.
Nah.
My question is, what did they do? Who did they talk to in these with the licensees to get them on board and like, look, we have this thing, and what did they show them? Or was it just a bunch of bluster smoke and bangs and whizzes and mirrors and whatnot?
That's a fair question. Or I wonder if they even just they didn't even get a license and they just said, well, we'll
say it to the
get
public, and
license later.
Capcom will be forced to do it.
Yeah, we'll show them this game running on the system, and Capcom will have no choice. I don't know. It's a weird situation. I would actually love to see a really in-depth expose on this entire situation.
Like I said, it's all going to be included in the movie of the week, made-for-TV movie that I hope they do at some point.
I hope so too. I hope for the best. I hope for you.
I'll play Mike Kennedy. John, you could play me at the end, where I'm just mad about the whole situation. The anonymous internet user 2442.
Speaking, I know this is a really weird segue, but if you're talking about movies of people playing other roles, did you ever see the movie Permanent Midnight?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, you should watch it because it's a movie about this guy named Jerry Stahl, and he's actually one of the chief writers on Alf, and he's played by Ben. What's Zoolander's name?
Stiller.
Ben Stiller. I can't quite remember. Anyway, played by Ben Stiller, and it's this story about this guy who he was a chief writer on Alf, battling family issues and heroin addiction, and it's a really interesting and very harrowing take on a behind the scenes person involved in one of my favorite things of all time. And they have a fake version of Alf in the show, and it's a show called Mr. Chompers, but it's an alien that lands in somebody's house and he's a big green asshole. And I like movies about other people's lives that make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. That sounds really terrible, I think.
Have you seen the Saved by the Bell made-for-TV movie that came out a year or two ago?
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was it was based on Dustin Diamond's expose tell-all book. And it was he made himself out to be this real badass in the story.
I bet, right? Yeah. Was it actually written and directed by him and everything?
Well, he wrote it. He wrote the memoir.
Oh, he did. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently there was all sorts of teen sex, drug use, rock and roll.
Yeah.
All these things on Behind the Bell, Saved by the Bell, unauthorized.
AC Slater didn't do anything bad though, right? It's because Mario Lopez would never.
No.
I'm trusting.
I think that was one of the more shocking things that he mentioned, that Mario Lopez was doing drugs with Lisa Tuttle.
No.
I don't know. The chick who plays Lisa, she's crazy.
She is really, really crazy.
Lark?
She's a writer now, quote unquote.
Lark Voorhees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen excerpts of her books.
And I was
They make
reading
no sense.
about a year ago. Yeah, I read a sentence that she wrote once. No. I was on Amazon, and it somehow came up in my feed. Lark Voorhees has a book, and it had, you know how Amazon has look inside this book now option, and so I clicked on it, and I felt like I was reading a Charlie Manson diary.
Ah.
If somebody transcribed sentences that Charlie Manson said, that's what that book felt like.
That's scary. Poor Lark.
Lark from Pilot Wings?
I was just gonna. Yeah, actually, that's what I was thinking of originally. All right, so do you think it's time for? Okay, here's my proposition. So Nintendo is going to be announcing this year at E3 the NX officially.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't know when it's going to come out. We don't know the details. We don't know anything about it. I believe this is the time to rebrand with a new mascot, and not to say that Mario's going to fall by the wayside, because Mario's still going to be as relevant as ever. But I think it's time to bring back Nestor.
Nestor X.
Like the Nestor X is the new system. This is this is the time for him to regain his time in the spotlight. Because I loved the idea for some reason of Nestor's Funky Bowling for the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
And there's something about him as being like I play video games, but I'm like an asshole kid. I don't really actually know what Nestor's deal was. But for some reason, I like the idea of him representing.
Nestor is actually a really authentic picture of most people who play video games.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, I know how to get to the secret part of Dungeon 7 in Legend of Zelda. You have to touch the flute 3 times, and then you spin in a circle, and then your dad tells you to turn off the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Nestor is very much like he's still an asshole on like the Game FAQs message board.
Yeah.
He still exists in some capacity, but I like him. There's something about him that I think would be really fun. And what they could do even, and I know this is really silly, but like for him to even exist alongside the Miis, and as a character that comes into your Mii games and plays with you. But I like the idea of interacting with him as like a persona, because the Mii games don't really like involve Mario or Link or anything of the sort. But they have characters. They have, like a ghost, or they have like a fisherman, or they have a dude. But if there was like a little Mii game and you got to like do stuff with Nestor, I don't know why, but I would feel that is such an authentic Nintendo like personality to be represented outside. Like, he's like the Miiverse host. He's the character that welcomes you. He's like the Nikki of Swapnote. He's not a franchise person, but he is. Hey, I'm here to help you with Nintendo, and I'm going to be kind of a dick, but I'm still going to help you out, and I'm going to say stuff and put my foot in my mouth, and you're going to overcome, my whatevers. But I like the idea of him existing in some capacity. He could be your tutorial for Nintendo Land. He could be, your guy who walks around Nintendo Land with you. He could be the guy who shows you how to, here's the new system update. He could host the eShop. I like his personality, and I want there to be like an actual entity to guide you, and Nestor is the man for the job.
He's your guardian angel.
He is my diarrhea angel. Love him. And then Howard Phillips could every 100 times you turn on your system, Howard Phillips shows up instead.
He's like, I don't work here anymore.
Yeah, he just gives you. He's like, why am I here? I work for JPC.
Do you want help figuring out how to use the Miiverse? I'll try and look it up for you because I don't know.
Exactly. Poor guy. I love Howard Phillips. I like that there was actually a video game sort of celebrity, at the time, because he's the one that I knew. I think there were others that were in high scores and arcades and stuff. But something about Howard Phillips was really cool to me to think of. Was he's the tangible face of Nintendo in North America. He's the guy. Howard Phillips is the man. It was exciting for me.
Now, was Howard Phillips, was he big in the games, or was he happened to be a guy from another company who was made CEO of Nintendo because he turned this little, the little video game company that could around? Because he kind of seemed like everybody's grandpa to me in my mind, and I don't know why. He's just like, oh, here, kids, here's some hard candies and a new video game, for your children's.
Are you thinking of Howard Lincoln or Howard Phillips?
I don't even know anymore.
That's fair, because Howard Lincoln, as the president, he was the older guy who owned the Mariners.
Because I looked up Howard Phillips, and apparently he was the 3-time U.S. Presidential candidate who served as chairman of the Conservative Caucus. I think we might be thinking of vastly different people.
Might be a different guy, but that'd be interesting.
Has Nintendo said anything about backwards compatibility? The Drowned God wants to know.
For NX?
I assume so, yeah.
Well, they've said pretty much nothing about the NX. Anything we've picked up has been from third-party reports that have been very carefully sort of put out there. So as of this point, Nintendo has said nothing. Even Kimishima at one point was like, I don't even know why people are calling it the NX because that's just a name that somebody made up that got stuck. I didn't do that.
Well, it was like we called the Wii the Revolution for a long time.
But like that was still like an internal code name. NX, he says, was never official. Just that moniker just appeared and stuck. And so then it was like, okay, fine. According to Kimishima, anyway. But yeah, like he didn't like code name it that.
Yeah.
So.
I think backwards compatibility is just an assumption, though. That like everyone just thinks it's going to be a thing. Because it always is.
It's hard to say because without them revealing what their plan is with the controller or anything of the sort, it's hard to say because backwards compatibility would have to be a very different kind of thing since there are so many games that depend on the gamepad as a controller. So unless that controller happens to be backwards compatible with the system and can still link to it, I don't know. You know? It's tough to say. I'm assuming that at this point, with the unified account system, all virtual console kind of stuff will all be finally unified in full. But until then, like unless they say that the Wii U gamepad can connect, or that the controller is going to be, have some sort of screen functionality also built into it, which we'll see.
What if the NX is only backwards compatible with Coleco Chameleon games?
Oh, that's not bad. That's a really good maneuver, I think.
Yeah. Big library.
Some super weird like forward marketing that Coleco's doing. Yeah, that's probably it. I would say, and it plays all Jaguar CD games flawlessly.
Yeah, but with the same failure rate of a Jaguar CD.
Exactly. Yeah. So like
the emulation is so perfect that the hardware fails constantly.
Built in, yeah, it's one of the features. It's a bullet point. Might play your games. So, I'm excited. I want to know more about the NX. I don't know anything about the NX. And we've only got about 3 more months till we find out.
Yep.
So, that should be good.
Plays all Halo games.
All Halo. And only Halo.
Yeah. Plays all games published by LJN.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I can finally finish Back to the Future.
So the John God says, could they potentially use a smart glass approach in place of the Wii U controller? So while I don't think that's technically outside the realm of possibility, I don't foresee it happening simply because Nintendo, from what I understand, is never going to forego traditional button input, and they could theoretically have a controller that could work in tandem with, say, your phone in front of you, but that also creates like a separate experience of the two things that you're holding and interacting with.
True, and I don't know if that'd be the most kid-friendly, and they do market heavily for the children.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I know, like they said, they're still gonna focus on the younger audience, but like they said, they also still really want to appeal to the core crowd because Kimishima's big push is that he wants the Western market to be brought back up to like Nintendo speed again. And so I know they have to sort of refocus. Obviously, the family branding is important for them, but getting a chance to refocus to a broader audience than that, I think, is going to be a really big step, and hopefully they can accomplish that. So I don't believe that the system is being built as a connected system. Connected in terms of it'll function with a PC, it'll function with your smartphone in some way. Streaming data, we don't really know at this point, but accessing functions of the system from phones and computers is definitely going to be up there, and streaming very well could be part of it. So it's not to say that it's outside the realm of possibility, but I don't know how they would implement that or what their plan to is. This is the thing, is I like discussing this because there's a million possibilities, and most of them that we've thought of are all wrong, and Nintendo's got something totally different that we have not yet even considered. But smart glass is, potentially possible. We're very interested to see if they end up doing something like that. So what if they took an approach where you actually had something on your Wii NX, and in the same way that the Vita could connect remotely online and play streaming through your PlayStation 4, if Nintendo had certain games that would have sort of like a Pocket Station style element that you could play on the go on your phone, so you could level up, or you could play like a Miiverse style game that could be reconnected to your home game via cell phone connection. I actually would really enjoy something like that. Your phone just becomes your VMU, your pocket station, your portable experience that you relink. You don't even have to relink it because it's still connected through some sort of online server that's streaming something. Who knows?
That'd be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if they do anything like that, they're going to try and do something with the 3DS, though. Like, link your 3DS here and pass your minis around.
So here's the other thing, is they also recognize as well that, like, the entire world has a cell phone. So if they want to market towards that, that's a much bigger spread right off the bat. And the 3DS's life cycle is going to be coming to an end in the next couple of years. And if the NX begins to take off, they either launch a new handheld or they emphasize the cell phone connectivity. But Nintendo's going to continue to push proprietary handheld hardware as well.
Did I talk to you guys about my idea for the 3DS follow-up?
No. Please tell me.
It's very straightforward. It's the 4DS.
Okay.
And so what it allows you to do is it has one screen for gameplay, and then one screen that allows you to look at yourself playing video games at an earlier point in your life.
Whoa. So, like, you actually get to see, like, when you first turn on your Nintendo at Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, like, if you what it allows you to do is that you can get like Faxanadu for your virtual console on the 4DS, and if you get stuck, you can open up a time portal on your second window and go and look and see how you as a 10-year-old child got through that section.
What if you just watch yourself die over and over and then put the controller down and go outside?
Well, you can't. If you stop playing, if your past self stops playing video games, you can no longer watch them.
You can't watch, or you can't play either. You have to mirror them playing.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as, like, your child, so you could buy, like, Ninja Gaiden 2, and then as long as your childhood self was playing that game, you could play. But if, like, you only played for like an hour because you were terrible at it, like, you get an hour of gameplay, and that's it.
I had a similar theory about, like, movies at one point, and it's like, well, what if in the future they had a technology that was almost like in Total Recall, where they can implant you with the memory of having taken a vacation? What if they just implant you with a memory of you remembering to have gone to see Jurassic Park when you were like 7 years old? Like, you remember going to see it, but you didn't actually go to see it. So
they trick you into thinking you saw a movie?
Couldn't they just show you the movie? Wouldn't that be true?
No, because, like, the experiment is that, like, you saw it at that time, and so you have all these memories of something that never happened.
So they'll build nostalgia for something?
Yeah.
Okay, but John, think about this.
Okay.
If you played Ninja Gaiden 2 for an hour as a child,
yeah,
that gives you an hour to play Ninja Gaiden 2.
As an adult. Yeah, now on the 4DS, yeah.
That means that as soon as you're done with that hour, you can go back and watch you as an adult, watching you as a child, and you get a bonus hour.
Okay, but you're still limited to, like, your initial exposure?
I guess.
Okay. So there's no way that you could build extra time for yourself, but you could continuously go back to yourself previously in subsequent endeavors, including the one you've just made.
There's no way you can.
Each hour.
What if you beat Ninja Gaiden 2 as an adult? Is there any way you could send that information back to yourself as a 10-year-old?
You'll need the new 4DS to do that.
So the new 4DS will allow, like, or time manipulation. The other one is just time observation.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, it can play Super Nintendo games.
Okay, good. So on the new 4DS, you could send back a different game to yourself as a kid. And have
you could just be like, oh man, I just finished Bayonetta 12
on your 4DS. But you in, like, 1986 could play that.
Yep, and then your mom would find you playing it and tell you could never play video games again.
Yeah, she'd spank you, and then, like, you'd create a time paradox, and you'd never play the 4DS.
Yeah.
New 4DS. This is complicated. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's probably what Nintendo's going to end up doing, is doing some sort of time manipulation.
I love that idea that everyone's like, Nintendo's just like they're a half step behind on technology. Like, it's not going to be as good. It's by the time the PS5 comes out, it's going to be antiquated, and they're just going to be like, oh, our new system allows you to go back in time.
Yeah,
in real life.
Yeah,
that's just
go save that girl from the car crash. Yeah, in 1982.
There's so many other technologies that they could be pioneering. It's like, just bring them up to speed. It's like, no, we're going to send them back in time.
Oh my God! But so that means, like, you could be playing Final Fantasy IX, and then like you could name your characters "Watch Out for 9/11" and just disrupt everything.
Okay, but then you would have to explain what 9/11 is, because that's just like what was that like? This,
Well, there's like 20 characters in Final Fantasy. Well, Final Fantasy 9 or Final Fantasy 6.
You could do it with Chrono Cross.
You could do it, yeah.
Chrono Cross would be good
like,
too,
you could like detail like specific members of Al Qaeda and like.
Poshel is Bin Laden. Yeah. Big pink dog. Yeah, watch out for this guy. That's interesting. Okay. All right. I think it's acceptable. We also have a couple new questions. Let's see. I played ET one time. My character kept falling into a pit. Now.
Is that a question?
Well, it's like an existential.
Maybe maybe the question is, did I experience that, or did the government input that nostalgia of
That's
me?
right. I
falling
play the
into
4DS and then transplant the memory of myself playing this game and dying in ET. That's not up to me. That's it. If you played the.
That is a
4DS.
shitty memory to implant somebody.
Well, yeah. I mean, like data manipulation, you can't like always be throwing out like fastballs. Sometimes you got to throw some weird stuff in there to make people. There has to be like a sort of like a normalcy that people have to identify with, and it's
Just
the idea of somebody stubbing his toe because that might have happened.
implanting a disappointing memory is really funny to me.
Yeah, exactly. I drank rotten milk.
Yeah, it's like, remember Shadowrun on the 360?
Yep, that's
There's that.
pretty bad.
John, what if every time you succeeded in a video game, like when you were a kid and you were playing Mega Man 3 and you're like, I can't beat Needleman, and then you got the idea, I'm going to use the Gemini laser. What if that was you sending that information through the 4DS to you as a child?
So every time I succeeded in a game, it was me from the future communicating that.
Which is why you were so angry today at Twilight Princess, because you weren't receiving any messages.
Yeah, nobody sent me the data for how to kill these bugs.
Yeah.
That was driving me nuts.
Did you try a
Yeah,
sword?
very well. Well, the problem is, it was driving me super pissed off nuts. Couldn't heal myself, and these stupid little like frog tadpole things were swimming at me, and I kept trying to do like the spinning sword slash because there's like 10 of them, and every time they hit me, it was taking off a half heart, and I only had 3 hearts because I had died, and so they killed me super quick, and I couldn't even fight the boss because like 20 tadpoles came out, and I was trying to run and slash them at the same time, but I would run and slash, and then Link would stop after the second slash and stand there to try to hit them, and then just get hit himself, and it was pissing me off.
It's really funny because in real life, tadpoles are the least intimidating thing in the world.
They're the size of like a dog. They're pretty bad.
Even 20 dog-sized tadpoles are just still tadpoles. They can't do anything.
Yeah, but all of these did. They're poisonous or something because like these kept slamming into my legs. Let's see. And the Drowned God asked for said one more thing. Innovation no one asked for, near impossible to implement in traditional gaming structure. What is Nintendo waiting for? And actually, offhand, because like so many of these things keep popping up, I have to delete some of them so I can keep track of everything. Diarrhea for the rest of my life. Cat scythe. Let's see. Question. Just gotta make sure we can keep on top of all these. Okay. All right. So the 4DS is coming out alongside the launch of the NX, which is, what do you think? NX 2017?
Yeah, I'm gonna go February 2017.
Okay. All right, so February 2017, we're going to be getting the NX, the Nintendo system, the brand new one, launching after the holiday, you predict,
Yeah.
because that is a slow time of year, generally speaking, which is when they announced. This also blows my mind, by the way, is to think about how like the 3DS launched March of like 2011. For all intents and purposes, was like tanking very
Yeah.
quickly. It was not a good launch. And Nintendo has managed to turn this thing around to arguably one of the best systems they have ever developed on so many levels. And it is tremendously popular. It has sold so many units, and they have special editions galore, and they've got a huge library of games and a very popular virtual console library. Do you think that they can turn it around? Again, home console-wise, do you think that they have the ability to come back and, we won't say reclaim the throne, because at this point, like, that's a very arbitrary concept to me. Do you think that they can have the glory that Nintendo once had as like a home entertainment console?
They're gonna have to do some very un-Nintendo things to pull it off, but I think they could.
What un-Nintendo things are you thinking?
I think they're gonna really have to court to third-party developers in a way that they haven't been doing. You know, I feel like the past couple generations they've been saying like, look at what our systems can do. Do that thing that our systems can do in your game.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they just need to be like, look at what our systems can do, so that you can just. Because that pack of rumors that came out, one of the developers was like, yeah, it's super easy to code for this thing. Like, you just drag your code in and compile it, and boom, it's done.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that would get, like, if you can make a game for a different console, and Nintendo's like, oh, by the way, well, you want to just make an X version? Okay. $100 for the license, and then you're
So
good.
much easier. So yeah, I don't want any situations like Bayonetta for the PlayStation 3 where they coded it and it was the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if porting code is proprietary and easy, that's extremely appealing. Because it's basically 360 hardware structure, if I'm not mistaken. Or not 360, Jesus. Xbox One, I think, is sort of what people had compared it to.
Mm-hmm.
The rumor, anyway. Okay. Is somebody erasing something?
Sounds like it. I've
Yeah.
heard it repeatedly tonight.
Is it
Who's
Aaron?
erasing things?
Nope. Not. But it's like that sound.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally me.
Oh. What are you doing?
I have a thing of salt.
Oh. Well, that makes less sense, but
'Cause I was eating corn on the cob earlier, and now I keep picking it up and spinning it. I'll put it out of reach.
that's fine. Okay.
Also, by the way, Radon, I love that every time you make a point, Erin either nods her head or shakes her head. Every single time you make a point, she's just like, yes. Or she'll give you a look like, you're a moron.
Is that true? You've been reacting to all my points tonight with a affirmative shake of the head, or
Sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching.
Getting me to look like I'm an idiot.
No.
She gave you side eye a couple of times.
You're really loud.
I do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like when you're starting a new sentence and you're really excited.
Well, it's because I have to
You're
talk
like,
over.
hey guys.
I have to talk over 3 other people. I have to project and cancel out their words. It's the only way you can get a point across in 21st century America.
Twump.
Yeah.
Totally off topic, but this is an interesting fact. Howard Lincoln posed for the famous Norman Rockwell painting, The Scoutmaster. He was the scout in The Scoutmaster.
Norman Rockwell was?
No, Howard Lincoln.
Howard
Norman
Lincoln.
Rockwell.
As a 13-year-old boy, I was in a Norman Rockwell painting.
I was thinking about Norman Rockwell just hanging out. Don't Mambo number 5 me.
I do what I want. A little bit of Monica.
No.
That guy existed.
Yeah.
Suzanne Vega?
Whoa.
What? What just happened?
There's some like new song that I heard at the gym recently, and it was using like the hook from that Suzanne Vega song, and I was like, I wonder if people know that this is a song from 25 years ago.
Which song is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it that Nick at Night, I Dream of Jeannie commercial?
I don't think it was on a commercial. It's like a remix of some song. Because you know how like Eminem some years back used that Martika song from like Toy Soldiers?
Yeah.
Something kind of like that. Some new song I heard at the gym, and it had the Suzanne Vega hook, and I was like, that's weird. I haven't heard that song in a really long time, but I don't even know who does the new version.
Yeah, they do that all the time. Like, I was at work a couple years ago, and I heard the Munsters theme song.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking
Mhm.
about.
Yeah.
And it's like they use that as the hook for a song. Now,
for
the
a
thing is, when
Fall
you
Out Boy
watch the
song.
Munsters,
That's what it was.
you know, every 30 minutes you hear the theme song. In this song, you heard it 4 times in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very confused as to what to think. Like, did somebody start watching an episode of The Munsters, got bored 30 seconds into it, started another episode of The Munsters? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got the Munsters theme song, and the song is called Uma Thurman, I think.
Oh,
I didn't tell you guys that I heard the worst song in the world last week.
was it Broken Side?
It was possibly worse than Broken Side, just on a conceptual level.
I'm really curious, and I want to know. Okay.
So I got in the car. I was going to meet Aaron for lunch, and the rock station out of El Paso was playing Voodoo by Godsmack, which is cheesy, but like I watched a lot of MTV Sphere, so it has like a weird soft spot in my heart. Yeah. And then the DJ comes on, he's like, all right, we're going to go from one kind of spooky sounding song to another one. Here's The Sound of Silence by Disturbed.
Oh.
And that's a thing that exists now, by the way, is a cover of The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel, covered by Disturbed.
Mm. Well, that sounds like things that I don't want to ever experience, but I'm curious at this point.
I broke my...
I mean, I showed you Broken Side, and I'm sorry for that. But this is also now.
I literally once a week I go, is it Bwee Bwee or Bree? I can never remember this. I never remember the lyrics to Broken Side, but
that's like showing somebody the mystery of like the looking down the barrel of the gun, and every week you're like, I want to remember what it looks like, just to see if I'm right. Don't do this.
As a burning piano.
we're violating copyright agreements and good taste.
I can't keep going.
That's good. I don't want to have any part of this.
Legally, I can't keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think that's mostly it in terms of like news and mood. I feel a lot better as well too, by the way. So thank you for that. I mean, it's we'll see ultimately how my mood goes from this point on. But hard days, they exist. Bad moods, they exist. Difficult times, depression, these things are they're part of it, and it's okay to feel that way. And there's this is going to be kind of a strange segue, but I wanted to talk about the game Life is Strange a little bit, because I talked with you, Radon, about this a little bit before. I beat the game finally, and the game really deals with some very heavy consequences for your decisions, and some really major things that people face in reality. And it's a very interesting thought to me that like this game can touch upon it so well and make you realize that like if something happens, the course of life goes on how it does, and if something dire and bad happens, life still goes on, but there's a consequence now. There's something else that happened where you've lost somebody, or maybe somebody's gone, or and the game deals with it in this really remarkable way. But what's really cool is that when the game came out and they were releasing this after like this major turning point for one of the characters, they opened up to a lot of people and said, if you are feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling like you're in a desolate place, reach out to us. Here's a phone number. Here's people you can contact. Here is like an outlet. And it's cool because the game itself wasn't just like a commentary on like the story these guys were telling, but it was really saying people out there have these issues. People out there go through this. Depression is a part of life. Being sad is a part of it. Some people just don't know how to like pull themselves back out of that hole, and here's an out for that. Here's a release. Here is a place that you can go, because not everybody has the opportunity. And I feel unbelievably fortunate to say, hey guys, I'm having a hard day, and get a lot of incredible feedback from a lot of incredible people that lift me back up. Some people don't have the opportunity to do that. And so, I still want to extend my hand to anybody who might ever feel that way. But there are places out there, and there are people out there, and there are situations that will accommodate towards listening to any difficulty you have that will be there, Because while I don't think I've, excuse me, ever reached a point where I felt that things were so dire that I needed to take any extreme measures, people do feel that, and that comes up with people, and it's a very difficult thing that when you are in the place of depression, and like I was today, it was so different for me because I'd never felt this bad. It wasn't something that I couldn't control. It was something that I couldn't address. It was something that I didn't know what to do because I had not been there. And you can't necessarily explain it to people because it's something that surrounds only you. It's a really big, difficult deal, and it's imperative to know that there are ways around that, and there are people that will listen, and there are situations that will accommodate to helping you out. So whenever it gets difficult, which inevitably will for anybody, don't feel that it's so far gone that you cannot talk to somebody. It's a very real thing. It's a very scary thing. So.
It's a good message.
You know, just enjoy what you can, and when it's difficult, know that it's not out of the ordinary. You know, I'm a pretty happy dude. I'm a very happy-go-lucky guy, but there are times when I can't. I can't, and everybody's allowed that. So I want to thank you guys again for like being here for me tonight, because even if my therapy is just hanging out with my friends online talking about video games and, you know, the difficulties that life presents, that's huge to me, because it gets my mind off of things and it reminds me of the element that I want to be in and the place that I want to be and the people that I want to be around. And every one of you, I mean, has impacted me and listened to me when I've needed it and been there for me during difficult times. So thank you guys. Everybody, yeah,
Thumbs up.
that's right.
I was actually watching that Disturbed video. Silenced, by the way. It's really weird.
I haven't seen the video.
It's just a burning piano and then him in silhouette, and then there's like a dumpster pouring like dirt on the piano. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And then his head comes out of the clouds, but it's like a weird Voldemort thing where his own face is coming out of the back of his head, and it's, I don't know.
Ooh.
But you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. It means a lot. Because things get overwhelming sometimes, and at the store especially, it's a lot to do. And I'm not saying I have like the most complex job in the world, but it's on a small scale, and it's a lot for me to handle, to do the way that I want to do it. It's hard because there's a lot that I want to do right, you know? Because to me, it's not simply just like have the store open, make money, keep going. It's give people an experience that they can only get with me. It's present something that people can only get the way I choose to present it. It's very much the store is an extension of my personality. And if that can't be met or maintained because I'm not around both stores all the time, it's really hard for me to see that not go the way that I want it to, and for me to feel okay with it. And that causes a lot of strife. So, yeah. Thanks for understanding.
What?
Bad Mr. Frosty. Do you think Broken Side plays as only Bad Mr. Frosty?
No, I think they mostly play as Blue Suede Goo.
Oh. You know, those games have an element to them that I don't dislike.
I don't like Clay Fighter. I like Claymates.
Playmates is goofy.
Yeah. Turn into animals.
So I'm happy that the Drowned God ended up tuning into this. As a first-time viewer of any of your content, you host a pretty awesome show. It certainly lifted my spirits. That means a lot, because the Cyber Zone is by no means, you know, Rooster Teeth Productions or Pat the NES Punk or anything of like that caliber. But it stemmed from, you know, just friends hanging out and deciding that we would just take our stupid conversations and publicly broadcast them. So it's important to me that somebody can watch this and listen to it and for any reason enjoy it, because, you know, some of our weird humor and the way that we do things might be kind of, you know, exclusive, but if somebody can watch it, relate to it, have a good time, and we can provide like an active dialogue, I feel really good about being able to do that and share that with people, because I just like saying stupid crap, and if somebody else happens to like it, like, that's fine with me. I think that's fun. You know, it's not for everybody, but I like when anybody can look at that and identify with it for any reason, even if it's just like something silly to laugh at. So thanks for coming in, man. We try to do this every Wednesday night, and depending on life situations, it, you know, may or may not happen, but it usually does. We've been pretty consistent recently, other than when I was sick last week.
And we kind of try to have alternates now.
Yeah, yeah. Guests, people can come in and, you know, keep the show going actively. So if one of us is gone, at least we still have some really great people running this whole thing.
And over time, I'm slowly starting to talk more during the podcast.
That's true. You open
When your microphone works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I seriously talked for like 45 minutes, and I just kept like, can anyone hear me? Just panicking.
Anybody out there?
John, I found you a picture of Broken Side, by the way.
I saw that. The guy with the purple, you know.
They spell side with a 3 to represent the D and the E, and I hate it.
It's funny because
Wait, what?
I discuss with people. I'm not very vocal. Like, I don't really publicize about anything that I dislike very much, and I'm certainly usually not vocal enough to actively like talk about something that I'm not into. But Broken Side, man, like if there's one
It's
thing that
so
I have to
awful.
feel like, and if you like Broken Side, I'm so sorry. Like I don't that everybody has their own thing. Everybody's entitled to anything they want, and my opinion of anything that you like is 100% irrelevant. And
I disagree. Don't like Broken Side.
It's if somebody wants to, man, it's not my call to make. It's none of my business if somebody likes it.
It's not my job to talk you out of making bad life decisions.
Right. And people, people hate plenty of stuff that I love, and that's totally fine with me. I'm totally okay with that. Bionic Commando is my Broken Side.
It even has the same initials.
Aww.
John,
Dang
so
it.
my logo there is one of the Broken Side logos. It's a B, C, a 1, and a 3 to represent Broken Side. I don't understand it.
I don't.
Go.
13.
Were they formed in 2013 or 1913?
It was
Are they
before
all
that for
13?
sure. I know they were formed longer than that because I remember somebody showed me.
Are they unlucky? Most likely.
Yeah, the fact that they.
Their listeners are.
They have a fan base.
It's. Yeah, I showed Michael Radon Salty Wands last year.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah, that's how that tournament ended for me.
That's true. Before you went to Las Cruces, I put just a big old pike in your ear.
But apparently there's only 2 current members.
What do they do? Are they still Broken Side? If there's
Yeah,
only 2? Okay.
But it's the 7 and Michael, and that's spelled M-I-K-L. Previous members included Fat J and Ants, spelled like the movie Ants with Woody Allen.
Woody Allen.
Yeah.
If Woody Allen was in Broken Side, I would listen.
I feel as if he's their producer, and he's just making some sort of really weird, sexual, commentary about the state of women.
So I guess their logo is the BC-13 and a pig wearing sunglasses.
But what does the BC-13 mean? What does the 13 represent?
I think it's supposed to mean Broken Side. I don't think there's anything deeper to it.
Is that a weird chemical number or something that I'm?
I think it's shitty leet speak or something.
Okay, I want to read you guys the critical reception tab on Wikipedia for Broken Side because it is flag to flag gold.
Okay.
Does it literally mean that the entire article's been flagged so many times?
As a goldish hue.
Broken Side is generally panned by critics. Cracked.com contributor Michael Swaim said the band sounded like a Slipknot Cher duet, while another Cracked contributor, Adam Todd Brown, commented on their song Freaks, "I hate that song so much that I would hold it face down in a bathtub until it drowns if I could." British comic book writer Warren Ellis considered Broken Side's Freaks music video a near-perfect snapshot of everything that's shit about this point in the culture. A writer for the Warsaw Business Journal attempted to describe their music. Quote, "Imagine an impassioned triceratops mating with a steam turbine, while off to the side, Daft Punk and the Bee Gees beat each other to death with skillets and spatulas. Imagine the sound that would make. Just try. Broken Side is kind of like that, except it also makes you want to jab your thumbs into your eyeballs and gargle acid." The New Musical Express stated in a review of I'm Not a Fan But the Kids Like It that, quote, "Even if I caught Prince Harry and Gary Glitter adorned in Nazi regalia defecating through my grandmother's letterbox, I would still consider making them listen to this album to serve as a punishment." August Brown of the Los Angeles Times writes, "This Albuquerque-based band has done for MySpace emo what some think Soulja Boy did for hip-hop, turned their career into a kind of macro performance art that exists so far beyond the tropes of irony and sincerity that to ask, are they kidding, is like trying to peel an onion to get to a perceived central core that in the end does not exist and renders all attempts to reassemble the pieces futile."
It's very flowery descriptions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of verbiage.
They spell everything with Z's and X's.
That sounds extremely early 2000s.
One of their songs is called Freaks, and it's spelled with 3
Three X's.
X's.
Yeah, it's FREA XXX.
That's GameStop used to have something like that called Game Bucks, and it was VUXX. And then Hershey had or Nestle, I think, had these cookie bars, but called cookie bars with a Z. And it's weird because it definitely makes me think of that era of early 2000s.
Yeah. In 2010, they released a free song on MySpace called "I'm Da Shizzit." So DASHIZZIT.
So now, do you feel that this almost has to be sort of like a self-aware parody of things? It's because it's very difficult for me, and I don't mean to demean anybody. I know I try to be so diplomatic with all of this. Do you think that they do this knowing that they can just get away with being ridiculous and people will buy into it? Do you think it's almost sort of like a social experiment where they say how much crap can we mess up visually and audibly and have people still sort of buy into it?
No.
Nope, I think they're 100% serious.
Yeah, I think they just dug deep and they found out who they truly are, and that's what Broken Side
They're
is.
calling this is their Gamers Anonymous.
Yeah.
Fair.
If you were given the opportunity to sponsor one of their tours, would you do it?
No. I
You said it almost dramatically. Like the idea of it might force it to happen. No.
Yeah, no. It's something that I would not want an association with that. If I don't feel it would bring me the publicity that I want. You know?
You could probably sell all those backyard wrestling copies on the Xbox though.
We have Juggalos here. That's easy enough to do. Actually, those games are not that hard to sell. If you just hand it to a 10-year-old kid and say you get to bash your friend with a fluorescent light, he goes, okay, fine, and you got a sale. So, but with Broken Side, I feel that's degrading the integrity of my store.
Let's try to get Juggalos.
Yeah,
for $5 for the
audience
sales.
that I don't want. And I don't mind Juggalos actually. It's an interesting subculture to me as well. And we even had some of them imagine going to the park, right? Okay, and you see a goose in he's swimming around the park's pond, and there's another goose who walks by and it honks, and then the goose in the pond honks too. And you go, okay, that's kind of cool, right? We were in the store and these guys wearing Hatchet Man jersey came in and they were playing buying some stuff, and this other Juggalo boyfriend and girlfriend walk in and they're walking around looking at stuff, and one of them goes whoop whoop and the other guys go whoop whoop, and it was actually it was kind of magnificent simply because there was an unspoken communication in the language that took place in front of us at the shop.
You just compared Juggalos to geese.
Well, in the most respectful
An entire subculture of people.
the animal,
Reduced down to waterfowl.
The drowned god says, I just picture the guy named Ants going, no, I don't just want to be Ants. I'm way more hip, or whatever the kids these days say, than that. I'll go by Ants. Not realizing that not only was he naming himself after a kid's movie, but a Woody Allen kid's movie. Yeah, and actually he might have said that 5 minutes ago when we were discussing it, but I just wanted to make sure that was said. So yeah, it's in a sense it's kind of cool to me, and something almost similar happened to me back when I was in I think 7th or 8th grade, and I was at Hastings. My dad had dropped me off at Hastings so I could stand around for an hour while I looked for a record or whatever. And I was going through some CDs, and I had a Primus shirt on. And I don't know if I I did the situation correctly, but I was wearing a Primus shirt, and one of their slogans was "Primus sucks." I had a shirt that said "Primus sucks" at some point, and you go to shows and people yell "Primus sucks," and they have CDs and stuff that emphasize this mantra. And there was this girl across the way from me, and she sort of kept looking up at me, and I was listening to music in my headphones while doing this. But it wasn't super loud, and I think she kept saying to me, "Primus sucks," as if she was trying to communicate via slogan that she knew of this band or she liked this band as well too. And I think she did it a couple times, and I kind of ignored it, or wasn't really paying attention, or wasn't sure if that's what she was actually saying. But like, to think that there's this communication that isn't conventional. Hi, how are you? You know, or oh, I like that too. That goes into like the only way I know how to like communicate with you is by saying this thing that has to do exclusively with some product that you are representing.
See, but that's where juggalos are marketing geniuses. See, it's easy to go whoop whoop, but it's really hard. That's why Primus isn't doing anything nowadays, because they don't have a catchy catchphrase like whoop whoop.
Yeah.
You know, like a teenage girl sidling up to you in a record store going, Primus sucks.
Yeah.
Like 5 times in a row. Like, just Primus sucks.
Yeah,
It doesn't really attract other
like,
people.
Diss me or something. Yeah. I don't know. The Drowned God also says, even if it is parody, going back to Broken Side, there is what's known as Poe's law that states a parody can become indistinguishable from what it is parodying. So, and that reminds me of a lot of trolls, where some trolls, called the master trolls, say things so properly that people buy into it all the time, because there's almost this obsession for people to be right about things, that when a troll says something that's almost obviously trolling, people cannot understand it as a joke. I've actually had this happen to me several times, like on the Instagram. I took a picture of my little like Metroid Zero Mission standee with Samus in the front and she's blasting some bugs. And I was like, Metroid's big day. She's so excited to, or, he's so excited to turn into a ball or whatever. And so it was like, Jesus, dude, his name, or her name is Samus and it's a girl. And I was like, yeah, like I've been doing this for like my entire life, and I wasn't rude about it. I pretty much was like, oh, I was having fun playing a joke. But it's interesting to me that there are people who have this obsession so much with wanting to be right about certain things like that, that even when stuff is put out there, like this guy says, as a joke, it becomes indistinguishable and people utilize it as some sort of like ammo for credibility.
Yeah.
Que bella.
Que bella.
There's a cat here that's trying to get my attention, and I don't approve.
We're going to get a new cat at the Wyoming store soon.
Are you going to put it in the ceiling?
Yeah, that's where they go, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always trying to get there.
Yeah, well, this one got into the ceiling and then into a different suite and then outside and then into somebody's yard and now presumably, hopefully, living in somebody's house. But
Didn't you say it also made it into one of the cat traps and then was let out by a
Domino's guy
employee?
did that because he's like, I don't want the cat to be in there. And it was just like, animal humane traps set outside on purpose. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
It's
buddy.
okay. He didn't understand. It happens. It's all right.
What did you change your thing to, Radon?
Nothing special.
You guys it's working like in tandem. This is it.
Did we actually play off each other, or did it pad out that well?
No, I saw. Well, I mean, I saw what you changed it to. So yeah, it was it was intentional. I saw you change it, so I clicked on your thing to see what it was, and I was like, okay, I can do this.
We should just left it out there like it was a thing.
Yeah.
A goose.
Honest Abe.
Dude.
Honest
Odyssey.
Honest Ape Escape.
Honest Ape Escape. I would like to see that. Ape Escape told from the eyes of apes.
Yeah.
Some dick hits you with a glowing stick and then puts you in a net that sends you through time.
He basically just tases these things, man.
Yeah, it's basically just a taser.
Yeah. That's sad. They should make a new Ape Escape game, except for like make it look hyper realistic, like Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Are they still wearing like the light hats?
Yeah. Like the game itself would be like virtually identical, refined controls and such, but like super realistic, and like you play as Draco Malfoy, except for not his character in the movie, but actually Draco Malfoy. After he got kicked out of school, and he has to go. And he lost his magic powers or whatever. I don't know how those movies work, or books. Sorry. And he has to go, hit a bunch of apes with sticks and try to toss them into a net.
That puts them through time.
Yes, but even better is that like the apes, like they're actually like apes, and like not just like little tiny like bonobos and things like that, but like big gorillas, and they could take probably like 20 shots from a taser before they rip you in half.
So you just want to see Draco Malfoy fight a gorilla. That's really what you just want to see.
I've kind of already seen it, but like like more directly.
You know, you want to see like a full-on brawl between him and a gorilla that ends with him putting it in a butterfly net.
Well, the gorilla's gonna win. There's no way, even with Magic Stick, that this gorilla's gonna lose to that.
So you just want to see him die.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
By a gorilla.
Yeah. If somebody's gonna go, that's the way to do it, man. Like on my deathbed, I want to. That actually reminds me of an Onion article, so I can't really like say this, but it was man loses to like secret battle with gorilla after 5 years or something. But yeah, like on my deathbed, like when my whole family's gathered around, I want them to be like, hey, you know, we're gonna pull the plug, and I'll be like, no. Let Coco in.
Like it's just been training in a back room for a while.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually spread like kitten blood across my neck, and Coco's gonna come in and just tear me in half. So that's the way it's gonna go. That's how it ends.
Kitten blood.
Yeah, that's also incidentally like my favorite thing ever. Not kitten blood, but the idea of Coco the gorilla not only being able to communicate unbelievably well with people, but like having this compassion for like animals.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like Coco's bloodlust. Like Coco is the Zodiac killer.
Yes. Ted Cruz and Coco, like they're indistinguishable, like under the guise of night.
You guys have heard the other theory that just emerged, right? That Ted Cruz is possibly the lead singer for Striper.
Yep.
I've seen that picture. I laughed. You never know. Never know.
Somebody actually did the research, and they were like, no, I actually compared tour dates of Striper along with presidential stops for Ted Cruz, and they don't line up at all. Look, here's Striper on stage on March 12th, and here is Ted Cruz looking at a giant cow made of butter on the same day.
Oh, Cruz control. Okay, well, I'm gonna go have a little bit of food proper instead of just Girl Scout cookies.
I'm gonna go buy a milkshake.
From where?
John, to have with your food proper, you should also have some of this Girl Scout caramel coconut tea.
Where do I get it?
I have no idea. I've been finding them on my desk every morning for the past week.
Like
at work.
A gift for? Oh, I'll get work.
Yeah, that was in your house.
At home, like, you know, some sort of weird Girl Scout like sneaks in and tosses one on your desk lightly and jumps out the window.
I'm assuming it's someone in my office because that's logical.
It is much more logical. That makes a lot more sense.
I like the idea of a Girl Scout just living in your cabinets, that she's just paying you in tea.
It's like
I like
in the
the
cupboard.
idea of being a secret product tester, where some company's just like, we're just gonna sneak free stuff into this guy's house and observe what he thinks of it.
Yeah, you never really questions it. He just goes, oh, there's more tea.
That's what Stephen Root did to Andy Dick on News Radio. It was a good plan.
I like it. I like this idea.
Andy Dick brings every conversation to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Okay. Well.
Oh, John, there is something that I wanted to tell you that's not podcast relevant at all. But before I forget, for like the 19th time,
Yeah.
Is it whoop whoop?
it is not whoop whoop. I'll never forget to tell you that.
Yeah.
I know that you're a fan of Comedy Bang Bang,
I am.
and I know that you're a fan of Weird Al Yankovic.
I am, and I'm very excited.
Okay. I wanted to make
I
sure
can't
you.
believe you get to tell him this good news, Michael. God damn it.
No, I saw it on Comedy Bang Bang, their Facebook page, and Weird Al's Facebook page.
And the crossover, the Project Cross Zone 3 Facebook page.
And Project Cross Zone 3, where, yeah, Scott Aukerman versus Nina.
Pai Chan.
Yeah, yes. I'm excited to get to the point where, like, mainstream, like, media can connect with video games, and they do stuff like that a bit more frequently. Like, yeah, Jennifer Lawrence versus Capcom or whatever.
It's just her getting punched in the face.
Yeah, by the Sentinel or not. I guess that's Marvel. Yeah, by Mike Hagar.
Yeah, just Hagar versus.
Just that 26-year-old woman.
He would kill her.
Oh yeah, no, she'd be dead immediately because he's just made out of pure muscle and she's just an actress. Yeah, I'd play it though. Odds are she'd play like a serve bot. No, well, yeah, so she'd play exactly like a serve bot, just as like a sprite swap. So she'd have like plates and like fiery foods and.
So it's not relevant to her as a person at all. Her just skin is in there.
Well, comparatively, because like a serve bot like is probably an accurate depiction of her versus any Capcom character. That's not like.
I feel like she'd be a palette swap of Anachorus.
Just a big mummy.
Yeah.
I was playing some Neo Geo games last week, and I'm blanking on which one it was. It was a fighting game, obviously, like a Street Fighter 2 clone. And what they did was when I was playing as Tia, I believe was the character's name. And then when you go through like tournament style, you go opponent after opponent after opponent, and then eventually you come back to your own character that you have to fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, rather than it being Tia versus Tia, it was Tia versus Shelly, and it was obviously it was just a palette swap, but with a different name as well.
I'm really sad that I immediately knew which game you were talking about.
Which game was it? Because I'm curious.
It was either Breakers or Breakers Revenge.
It was, I believe it was actually Breakers. You're right. That sounds familiar.
I was like, well, it's a Street Fighter clone. It's probably Breakers. And like Tia, and I'm like, Tia's a character in Breakers. Why do I know this? I don't want to know that.
But now you do.
Also, that was a game that I could not beat even with infinite coins. I'd really tried, and I could not finish it.
So, Radon.
Yes.
Did you get an opportunity to look at hooking up your Wii U to streaming equipment?
I have not, but with the knowledge that I can use the Wii cables, I know that I can.
Perfect, because that's something that we had discussed. I don't think we've talked about this with Adrian or Graham. Radon and I were thinking about doing something for the podcast, and maybe we'll do this, like a couple times a month, maybe every week if it goes quickly. It just sort of depends on like the natural flow of things. But we're looking into the idea of making Mario Maker levels and then sending them back and forth to each other once a week. So we don't get like a lot of time to develop one. Just get a couple hours here and there to make something specifically for the other. And maybe it's really hard, maybe it's sort of puzzle-based, maybe it's just to make each other laugh, who knows. But we're thinking about the idea of sort of doing like a level sort of swap with each other. And,
That'd be kind of cool.
And
I like that idea.
Yeah, and maybe, 1 week we'll do Mario Maker, and then another week we can do like a different game. But Mario Maker seems best catered towards it since we can really target each other specifically.
Yeah.
So.
Next week we should all just podcast while playing Mario Kart with each other.
Ugh,
I like this
It'd be
idea.
awful.
I hate this idea.
I'd like it.
John will be having like a big philosophical moment, and then it'll just be like, "Fucking blue shell."
Yeah, basically, I'll look at a heartfelt discussion about like my spiritual journey and where I've come from, and then just get run over by Wario.
Or get lightning while you're going off a ramp.
Yeah, all the time.
Every time.
But one of my favorite things about the podcast, again, and this is one of my favorite things about what I get the chance to do with the store as well too, is it's very important for me to make sure that people can relate to me. This is why I like talking to you guys, is because we have very real conversations. We have silly conversations. We have conversations about games and movies and Draco getting killed by gorillas. And we have a good variety of topics. But one thing that I like to do with the store especially is that I want people to know that as a store owner, like, I'm a guy. I'm a guy with struggles, and I'm a guy with ambitions and goals, and I'm a guy with problems, and I'm a guy with difficulties, and with my own complexes and issues and things that I've built up over the years. And a lot of those include triumphs, and a lot of those include struggles. And both of those things bring me to exactly where I am. And one thing I like to emphasize is that all my difficulties and experiences have brought me to exactly where I am in terms of like victory. But where I am right now is also the exact result of the struggles that have limited me in terms of my progression onto the next step. So it's all important. It's all there for a very specific reason. And getting the opportunity to do something like this is important because to me as a kid, I remember looking into like, magazines and uh, movie stars and people that were, like big figurehead celebrities. And I'm not saying that I'm this, but I like the fact that now I can communicate that with those people and they can communicate that with me. And there's something so special about Ken Levine, the guy who's made like the BioShock games in recent years, liked my status about being depressed. I mean, that's he's not like, oh, hey, right on, that's awesome that you're depressed. But it's somebody that can look at that and identify with it. It's somebody that can look at that and say, hey, I can even just with a click of a button, I can identify with what this person has to say and acknowledge that, like, yeah, it's a struggle and it's something difficult. And so, I don't have like celebrity status by any means, but I'm still a guy who runs something and does my own thing, and I'm just a person, and he's just a person, and Bill Murray online somewhere is just a person. All these people, and there's nothing cooler to me than we're at a day and age now where we can communicate that person-to-person-ishness thing with people around us, and we can have that tangibility, and we can have that relatability, and it's the coolest thing ever to not have that sort of separation of I'll never communicate with this person in my life, David Deanspear commented about my picture of Cheerios 5 years ago. This guy who made Truck 1 and 2. That's remarkable to me. But getting the opportunity to have people in my life that I can share that with on my friendly level with you guys is the coolest thing ever. And even having the opportunity to one of the most important things that's ever happened in my entire career in video games was I had sent a message to Christian Svensson at some point, and I don't remember exactly. I was having kind of a hard time doing something business-wise, and instead of just saying like, hey man, I'm sorry to hear that. That's hard. Best of luck. Figure things out. He wrote me like this 10-paragraph long anecdote about growing up and having a struggle and having difficulty in like overcoming something that was difficult for him. And the fact that he did that just for me, this is the guy who was like the head of Capcom, like I think it was PR some years back, astounded me because he took the time out of his day to communicate that with me. And it made him not just like, hey, Christian Svensson does stuff with Mega Man and Street Fighter. Christian Svensson was a person who was a person. He was a relatable human being, and he had his own struggles to get to where he is. And I look at him right now, and there's pictures of him doing stuff with whatever company he's with, and he's a big important businessman, and that's cool. But he went through his own shit. He had to fight his battles through his own trenches, like everybody else. And there was something so comforting about that to me, and it makes me realize that even my battles are not undoable. They're not unwinnable. They're just the battles that I have right now, and then something great comes of it. And that's the coolest thing in the world to me, is to be able to do that with anybody. And, maybe some 15-year-old kid, probably not, but some 15-year-old kid could go online and say, hey, that's the guy from GA in his room, wearing some silly suit, talking about video games and buttholes, and, hanging out with his friends. He's just a dude. He's just a person, but he found a way to make it work. He's just a guy, but he found what he did and he made it work. And if that can help anybody, even for the smallest moment, then I've done something beyond words important for me. It's the coolest thing in the world to be able to communicate that with people and to be there for people and to have people listen to you and to be able to listen to them. That's my favorite thing about getting a chance to do this and getting a chance to communicate, is that if I've helped somebody, that's amazing, because there's so many people that have helped me, and you guys are part of that, and internet celebrities are part of that, and mainstream, like people are part of that. But getting a chance to feel like I'm no better than anybody, but to feel that somebody has been where I've been before and they've made it work is so important for me, and it's so huge. And I can't qualify how wonderful that is with words, because it's encouraging to me to know that it's going to be okay. Sorry to get all like super deep for a second, but like I like communicating that because it's so important that I have to express it somehow.
It was a good thought. I liked it. I just got distracted because Scribbles is in the parking lot again.
Is in the parking lot?
Scribbles, the crazy homeless guy that comes to the West Side Store.
Oh, gotcha.
Just pacing back and forth in front of my window.
Pizza and stuff, didn't he? That guy's interesting.
It's the guy who showed up and signed up for all the tournaments we were doing, and then tried to light someone on fire, and we had to kick him out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That happens. Yep. Welcome to GA.
Small business ownership.
This is part of the struggle. Yeah, we had a homeless dude like yell and spit all over the place because he smelled super bad and he asked to use the phone. I was like, man, like I don't mind you being in here, but like you gotta take a shower or something, and I can't let you use the phone until you've sort of cleaned up a bit because it's bothering people. He got mad and we had to call the cops and like lock the door because he started going ballistic and like spitting all over the place, and I think he was air punching.
Just
I somehow thought that story was going to go a completely different direction. I don't mind you being in here, but you're going to eventually have to buy something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, I don't mind people chilling as long as they're not disrupting somebody else's experience, and he unfortunately was on several levels, and we had to address that.
I like the idea of you selling Rocket Power Game Boy Color games to different homeless people, and they can like trade for like more appealing ones.
Like Rocket Power the series or Game Boy Advance games that actually are rocket powered that you could like
Rocket Power the series on Game Boy Video.
Oh yes, yeah, that's important so they have something to watch.
like it's a weird form of just
Yeah, it's this new kind of hobo
like bartering system.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you could take it down to like the hot dog vendor outside the courthouse, and he'll give you like 1.5 wieners.
Or 3.
You don't have to exchange it. You show it to him.
Exactly, it's very verified. Yeah, this is like it's credits.
Is it because that dude's like a super fan and he's like just glad you're spreading it?
He just wants to know these games are in circulation or these videos. Yeah. As long as there's the proper distribution like flow in Albuquerque, he's okay. That's important.
Oh man,
Yep.
you guys are a trip.
Eurotrip.
just,
Eurotrip?
It's both getting really defensive.
Yeah. Oh, fuck you. Eurotrip's a great movie, by the way.
It's pretty funny.
I stopped myself from going off on a rant about how good Eurotrip is.
Fair.
I've got one loaded up, ready to go. I'll save it for next week.
Yeah, please do, because if I don't leave in like 5 minutes, I'm not going to get a milkshake, and then my whole day will be ruined. And it'll be all Eurotrip's fault, and I'll never listen to the argument.
The milkshake sounds really good right now.
It does. There's a Dairy Queen right down the street from me. I might walk over there in my shorts and suit because I don't know if anybody saw. I'm not completely.
I don't know if you know this or not, but this is what like people on TV do. Like news anchors and like people on ESPN, that's what they do.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've
thing.
seen it in movies. I never thought that was a real thing.
No,
No,
it's a pretty well-known thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah, I was like, I'm really lazy tonight, but I want to look good.
But speaking of milkshakes, I went to Fat Burger yesterday for the first time ever because I'm now relocated to Las Vegas, Nevada.
Right.
And wonderful. And they have all these awesome fast food chains out here that are full of, just they fry things in like hardcore pig fat, rather than, vegetable oil because fuck health. And one of the things was that they had it's March, right? I'm not mistaken in knowing that, correct?
Yep.
It's March.
Very much March.
And they had pumpkin pie milkshakes for sale.
Oh, I'm glad about that, but that's weird.
Yeah, I was like, because fuck fall, that's why.
I really want a pumpkin pie milkshake.
I think Freddy's has concretes that are that.
I'll have to go give it a shot.
Now I just want a cherry milkshake from Blake's, but I can't have that. Because Blake's
Go get our respective milkshakes.
All right, that's good.
Well, go get milkshakes. We'll meet back here next week.
Yeah, exactly. 1 week to get your milkshake.
I really hope that we just start next week's show all having a milkshake.
I'll commit.
If you remind me, I will commit to it as well.
You can count on me. You have my sword.
All right.
Let's see. I know in The Last Crusade, Sean Connery and Harrison Ford shot the entire sequence in the Zeppelin in their underwear. Is what the drowned god said.
Because they're just sitting down at that table the whole time.
I guess so. That's incredible. I'll have to watch that.
I'm not even gonna fact check that because I want it to be true.
Yeah, I believe it. I straight up believe it. This gentleman
It's
would not
true
lie.
until you disprove it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
We should do this in our underwear. And Harrison Ford's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I like that as your Harrison Ford impression. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well. Oh, just like the response is the Harrison Ford impression.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, Michael, you're wildly wrong. Yes, I agree. Okay.
All right, we're losing valuable milkshake time.
We
All
are.
right, guys.
Everyone, go get a
All right.
milkshake and
Okay.
go to bed.
I want to thank you guys for listening. It means a lot to me for you guys to come in and participate and have fun with this whole thing. So we'll do this again next week, 8 o'clock p.m. MST, Mountain Standard Time. And we'll be back with milkshakes. But go to screwthetruth.com so you can check out the rest of the podcasts. You can check out Amcast, which our friend Adrian is one of the major proponents of. And they are wonderful people, Adrian and Morgan. They do their own thing. I say transcribe every single time. I wish.
We transcribe every episode of every podcast.
I wish.
That's actually why I haven't updated in a while. I'm still working on typing up the first episode of Cyberzone.
Yeah,
That's a
long
good one.
We have to type up me laughing for like 20 straight minutes.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Once you get to X mode.
Yeah, you were talking about I think high stakes poker at one point.
High stakes combat. That's the one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm still on that part right there. I
That's
can't stop laughing.
Oh no, John. Oh no.
What?
Kotaku just posted a video from GDC. Someone like animated a tribute to Iwata, and it's apparently like the saddest thing in the world.
Well, I'm gonna go cry off camera, everybody. So
Yeah.
He doesn't
I'm
even need to
excited
see
and
it.
I'm
He's
upset
already.
people
I'll
are
send you
wonderful.
the.
People are wonderful. To check out Amcast, check out garetro.com, facebook.com/gamersanonymous, facebook.com/cyberzonepodcast, and then we also have @garetro for our Instagram, for our Snapchat, for our Twitter, and you can see all kinds of fun stuff that we do. But yeah, we're really working on putting even more out there. It's just a long process, and being busy with lots of other things that aren't this, it can be difficult to do all those things, so we appreciate your patience and support for all of it. So, thank you guys. So, whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you guys so much for watching. And I love you. Thank you for this. Okay, good night, everybody. Until next time.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night.